All right, I hope everybody is safe out there as you get ready on your hump day.
Mike.
Yeah. So basically everything is shut down around here after our blizzard. Crazy weather yesterday.
Crazy.
I will say this, my commute's a little bit shorter than both of you. It's the usual. Residential streets are snow-packed. Most of the well-traveled streets are in okay condition. Not bad.
Between the three of us, we got the metro covered.
Yeah.
I got west. You got downtown.
I am a little worried for if there's anybody on the highway and they're getting off the highway on like 30th and Dodge area, because that is super bad right now.
Dodge is a sheet of ice.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Dodge Expressway
is
a sheet of ice.
Dodge is bad, and then there's even like if you're driving westbound Dodge, like the snow will come out and like kind of cut off half the lane, and so you have to like veer into the other lane to get around the debris. So it's not good right now. Not good right now at all.
All right, so this dude stop in the middle of Dodge for no reason and turn on his flashers. I was like, nice. I almost rear-ended you. That's not safe. You need to get off this highway now.
That's not good.
No.
So, I mean, a lot of schools are closed. Businesses will have late starts. So, just plan accordingly. Welcome to winter in March. But yesterday was wild. I mean, it was raining, snowing, sleeting, and ice pellets at the same time at my house. The wind was blowing. We never lost our power, though, so
yeah.
I have a little like
rise up, Exarban.
I did lose my power. I lost my power for a good hour and a half. It was scary.
What did you do?
Did
you panic?
No, I just do what I always do, no matter whether or not the power is on. I just laid on my phone and I just looked at sports and read things and wrote things. And
I couldn't have gone out from 8 to 11.
The only problem was that I was like, all right, like the Creighton game had started, and I'm like, all right, we got to get this rolling. Like I want to watch this thing, and then then
I was getting 5 minutes.
Then we were getting to the point where I'm like, I started worrying.
It was over when the referee threw up the ball to begin the game.
I was trying to be nice.
Well, good. I'm glad that was the case for Creighton Seton Hall. But then I was like worrying, like, oh my God, like is Nebraska? Will I miss the Nebraska game? Will I be there for tip off? And then like 2 minutes later, the power came back on. So,
nice.
Hell yeah.
And then 3 hours later, the season ended.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna like play grab ass here and talk about, hey, how'd you survive the blizzard of 2025? We're gonna get right to it. This is a safe place this morning because a lot of you are at home. A lot of you did not sleep. That game went on and on and on, and it really was 6 games are really dumb wrapped up into one.
Yeah.
So Nebraska loses in double overtime last night to Ohio State, 116-114. I've been a Nebraska basketball fan for a long time. Okay, so my introduction was Danny Nee. So spoiled. Last night was almost my nearly 30 years of fandom wrapped up into one. Incredible individual performance, slow start, frustrating, bad officiating, missed opportunities. I mean, I saw my whole Nebraska ball life pass in front of me last night watching that game. But I want to tell people that today is a safe place. You can let your emotions out because there are a lot of emotions. You can have emotions, and they're both true. That Nebraska had a huge missed opportunity last night in that game in which they were down 11 and fought back. And you can also have the thought that, damn, that was some bad, inconsistent, game-changing officiating calls in the second half. But it's a safe place. You can let the emotions out. You can let it rip. You can take shots at anybody you would like. Fred kind of went there last night on the postgame. Didn't go far enough, in my opinion. Mike Woodson went further than he did after the Indiana-Oregon game. But, man, you're up. First of all, slow start again. You get back in the game. Then you have a call that kind of stunts your momentum, a flagrant one. But then you get the game to overtime. Oh, before you get to overtime, guy who had a baller night last night, missed his only free throw, who's one of your best free throw shooters. But you're in overtime. You're up 5. Yesterday was Nebraska basketball, where they aren't good enough to create breaks, and they don't get breaks. And they get a loss that now has put them in a very precarious situation. So you can let the emotions out. This is a safe place. Kelly Pfeiffer does not work at NRG Media. His family does not work here. I will probably see Kelly tomorrow in Sioux Falls. I will send all of Nebraska their best wishes for him. But man, that was That was a
So he's your
that was a
pregame
rough one
guest?
last night.
You're gonna reach into your pocket, and be like, "Hey, Kelly, this one's from you on behalf of Nebraska." Give him look. Yesterday, what happened was kind of what had happened not only in the last couple of games, but even kind of in earlier in the year when Nebraska went on that 6-game losing streak. Was they couldn't put the nail in the coffin. They got to the mountain, but they couldn't, reach the summit in terms of the fact that, they went down early.
I've been to the summit.
They went down early. They climbed all the way back. They went on a massive run. They tie the game. And then you're looking for that next 6-0 run, that next 7-0 run, that one where you continue the momentum and you kind of put that other team in the rear view, right? And they didn't get that against Ohio State. They didn't get that against Minnesota. They weren't able to rally off that massive run against Michigan. These are the 3 games that they lost to very closely, which, is going to end up being the determination of whether or not they get into the NCAA tournament, which at this point they're not in. I mean, they could not put the nail in the coffin. And yesterday, it happened when they came all the way back in regulation and they couldn't finish it. And then they went up 5 in overtime. And you were looking for that next bucket. You were looking for that next big 3. You were looking for them to go from being up 5 to being up 7, or being up 5 to being up 8, and fully closing out the game. And they couldn't do it. They just let Ohio State stick around. And, there were questionable calls, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But credit to Ohio State, they made some really tough shots. I mean, they made some tough ones, and they kept themselves in it. And then when they needed to in double overtime, they're the ones who put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about, if you look at that game. So Ohio State has more dudes than Nebraska, and Nebraska's blueprint is they have to play hard. Mm-hmm. Okay, they have to play hard. They have to be smart, and they have to Bryce. Bryce has to just go crazy, and he went crazy last night. He had 43, and there's some good and there's some bad, and all of that going on. But to fall behind on the road again, which set your watch to that, and then battle back against a team that had clearly more dudes, and Nebraska. It was so much of, and this is Nebraska basketball this year. It's so much of a struggle to get a bucket on the offensive end. Then Ohio State would come right down and respond, and then you go, "Oh my God, here we go. We got to start again." Or Ohio State, which Nebraska isn't real physical at the rim, so Ohio State would run their sets and they'd run dribble ball handoff, and next thing you know, there'd be 10 seconds on the shot clock, and then they drive to the bucket. Nebraska doesn't have anybody that is an enforcer at the rim, so there were a lot of times where they got tough layups, but they weren't really tough.
Yeah.
It's just like as the game went on, you're like, okay, how is Nebraska still in the – oh, that's right, number 3 is out there balling, and they're battling. And I'm like, God dang it. I want guys that are skilled. I want a plethora of skilled guys that, you know what, it's not, man, we just got to play hard. I want some guys at the dude time that they go after it. And number 3 was doing that. And why I say it's the good is, again, yesterday was Nebraska basketball in a nutshell. The whole damn game of fall behind, fight back. Oh, you like this? Then you get a call that, you take a step back. It stunts some momentum, that flagrant one on Bryce.
No.
But then you battle right back and you're in it. But then you're ahead and you have the opportunity to seize a game that would have probably, and last night was a really good night for teams that were on the bubble, except for the San Diego States, the Villanovas, the Indianas, not so much San Diego State, but Villanova, Indiana, and Nebraska, is you had the game that was right there. And then probably to wrap it all up, you have stuff that happens that you're like, what's going on here? But the great Bryce that scored 43, there is the greatness of him. And I hate that he missed his only missed free throw of the night. Now, he only got the line 7 times. Is a story. But there's also the story of Bryce was on one last night where he brought his friend Juwan along in the first half, and they kept Nebraska with a pulse. Mm-hmm. But, man, in nut-cutting time, everybody stood around and watched number 3. And everybody in the ballpark, everybody watching on the Peacock, as Stephen Bardo is still talking, knew that number 3 was going to take a shot, and they had opportunities, and they missed them. And then you compound what usually happens in Nebraska basketball, and they're in this situation. They did it to themselves through the whole course of the season to put their season on the line with 1 to go in the regular season. And I think you got to at least win 2 in Indianapolis now.
You bring up a great point with when it came down to it, it was just Bryce and the ball, and it was going to win us the game. And I really wasn't a fan during the game when they were up And when they had momentum, that they were bringing the clock all the way down to 13 seconds on the shot clock or 10 seconds on the shot clock before they ran an action. And I understand the strategy of it. Don't get me wrong. Hey, you're up by 5. We're going to lower the clock. We're going to give Ohio State less time. We're trying to play against the clock, not necessarily against the team. But at the same time, I feel like you do that when you're up 8 or when you're up 10 or when you're up 11, not as opposed to when you're up 3, 4, 5 points, which is when they were doing it. And I just don't feel that this offense can function when they have to run a set, because what if you do run a set and you find something? It's just, I don't think it's in their best interest to go, okay, hey, 13 seconds left, an offense who, like you said, is struggling to find a bucket, possession in and possession out. We're not going to give ourselves way less time to go and do that and put ourselves essentially under the gun to close out a game. I don't think that was the right, at least with how the game was flowing and how the offense was choppy at times, that was the best decision to make. But I want to give some credit to Fred. He ran some really nice sets throughout the entirety of that game, where we haven't seen, at least I haven't seen, Nebraska get that many cuts to the basket. And, they have a really nice pass and they're laying it up, or nice passes and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, this was, they just lost a basketball game, and the call's going to go their way and the shot's going to go their way. And when they had their opportunities to end it, they didn't take it. And that's kind of like you said, the season in the nutshell, right? Like, they had their opportunity this season at the end of the year to play not great teams in the Big Ten and lock themselves within the NCAA tournament. And yesterday, they had opportunities to win that game and to lock themselves in the NCAA tournament, and they didn't do it. It's just over and over again, they've had prime opportunities to show that, hey, we can have sustained success with this program, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. They didn't close the door.
Nebraska basketball in 24-25. They gave up 49 points to Michigan and lost a game. They scored 114 on the road at Ohio State and lost a game. That is Nebraska basketball. Now,
crazy.
The part of the actual playing, when the flow is going on and there's no stoppage of play with a whistle or the ball going out of bounds or a timeout or anything like that, and credit to Nebraska, because the flagrant one that they ruled on Bryce stunted Nebraska's momentum. Because you could feel it start to go downhill, that, oh my God, Nebraska's going to come back here. Because they got him within, 66-62, and then it was a 4-0 run right off the flagrant one. I get that there are judgment calls because there's the Asijan out-of-bounds call that's going to get a lot of play. The one at the end of the game in the second overtime, and this is the one that's being heavily discussed at the end of the game, and everybody pulled out the rule book and tried to say, okay, this is what Micah Parrish can do on the sideline, that he's got a 3-foot box. There is a great video that is out there that I did not see last night when I shut her down, that I saw this morning, of somebody that is across from the benches up high at the arena, and they are videotaping. And you can see Parrish, and Kelly Pfeiffer is standing right there now. See, I think Kelly Pfeiffer in the moment froze.
Yeah.
Because you don't normally see that on the sideline.
Sure.
On the baseline, you'll get it. A guy will just forget that, hey, you can't run the baseline, even though the ref says it to him before he hands him the ball, and the kid takes off, and you're like, okay, that's a travel.
Yeah.
I think when it happens there, because it doesn't happen very often, right there, the official goes, whoa. But if you look at the video, and, you can't see his feet.
Sure.
But look at the video, and Jimmy, if you want to share this, you want to find it, share it from our Twitter account. Count the people that are sitting courtside. He goes down about 4 people. Now, that's longer than 3 feet.
That's way longer than 3 feet.
So who knows if they call it a travel and what Nebraska does with it when they get it.
Sure.
But it just compounded a lot of calls that were bad calls or no calls. And you got both coaches that were in on the officials from the jump last night. I thought this of the officiating crew. And there are some judgment calls in there, but that one's not a judgment call. I thought the 3 officials working last night's game looked tired. Like, we're tired physically.
Wow.
Running up and down the floor. They were really, really slow. There was a lot of delayed stuff. I don't know the schedule of those 3 that were working. I know Kelly Pfeiffer works a lot. They looked tired last night working that basketball game. And I think there were some lazy calls because of they were almost behind the play. But again, at the end of the day, Nebraska was up 5 in overtime, and they had a chance to win the game. And you're Nebraska, and you know that you can't put yourself in that position. It sucks that there were calls that stunted Nebraska, or you went, what the hell? Or a guy slamming the ball on the floor that should have been a technical, the taunting that went on. Stuff that normally is called was not called last night. It's just that's 50 minutes of Nebraska basketball on display, and it sucks. It's a groin kick. The cod piece wasn't there last night, and it hurts like hell this morning. But they did it to themselves, man. They did it to themselves, and they have only themselves to look in the mirror and go, how did we get into this, and how do we get out of it? Because I want to drop before you respond to what I said.
Sure.
I want to drop this little nugget in there.
Yeah.
I said nut. Little nugget. So you're looking at brackets this morning. You're trying to figure it out. And last night was a good night for bubble teams. Like Texas saved themselves with a quad one road win. BYU's on a heater. BYU turned the ball over 29 times at Hilton. When Hilton has a big game, there might not be many other places in the country that are as good as Hilton Coliseum. BYU turned the ball over 29 times and won the game in double overtime. I mean, we had crazy basketball last night. We had not only the Nebraska game, we had that game which went to double overtime. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights of the Arizona State game.
No, I didn't.
That was 113-100 in regulation.
It was an NBA game.
Okay, so welcome to March Madness. But as people are like ticked off today and they're wondering where in South Dakota Kelly Pfeiffer lives,
that was a great drop. By the way. I know this isn't a visual medium, but the look right to the camera was incredible.
Sounds cold.
Or as possibly Fran McCaffrey's last game, Kelly Pfeiffer works the game on Sunday in Lincoln.
Oh my God, that'd be incredible.
Shelby Mast.
I'm looking at it now.
He has Nebraska as the last four in the first team ahead of Arkansas, Boise State, Oklahoma. He updates. He's really the only guy that updates his brackets at the end of the night. He has Nebraska in the play-in game against Arkansas. So he has them as a 11.
So currently his first four out is Texas, who you mentioned had a pretty big win yesterday, and then Ohio State, followed up by Xavier and UNC.
And I think Xavier should be one of the last four in.
I think Ohio State definitely has to be looking around and saying, hey, what the hell, Shelby? We just beat the team that you has in the last four in yesterday. I mean, that was essentially a loser go home type deal. Why the heck are we not in the last four in Nebraska? I mean, it would make more sense from that perspective that Nebraska is where Ohio State is in this bracket. And then UNC, funny enough, they're hyping up, ESPN just constantly game day, UNC versus Duke. And I don't think anyone gives a crap about it. But funny enough, if they are to beat Duke later on in the week, I mean, that win in itself could probably, with how weak the bubble is, at least give UNC a shot to win a couple of ACC tournament games in order to get into the bracket. The bubble is, and that's part of the reason why. I mean, this Nebraska team, at the end of the day, and I'm just going to say it because it is the truth. They don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. They don't. They had opportunity after opportunity, not only just last night but throughout the season, to comfortably be in the NCAA tournament. And they've lost close game after close game after close game this year. I mean, you can Rutgers, USC, Maryland, Iowa, Minnesota, Michigan, last night against Ohio State. Like I'm St. Mary's, even in the non-con, was a pretty damn close game. Like they had their opportunities to do it. And yeah, it came down to last night, and you're fortunate that the ACC is having a really, really down year, and that the bubble in general is just super, super weak to where you could have won yesterday. And man, I'm not a foul guy. You're not a foul guy. And I've never been about the whole, like, if there are some ticky-tack, like there wasn't that much contact, or maybe like from one angle it looked like a block. You get really frustrated, and I get really frustrated when you look at officiating and there are calls that literally are by the book, rule of the book, and they go against the book. Because a lot of times when people discredit officiating, it's like, well, technically it's a foul, but should it really be called there? The calls that were missed yesterday were blatantly against what the rules are. I'm looking at the video that you're talking about right now. The guy moves four people down.
Yep.
He moves four people down the sideline. That is a clear violation of what the 3-foot box should be. Yesterday, Bryce Williams.
Well, okay, so before you go any further, there's also part of that whole play. Now, let's say they do call it a travel. There's no guarantee that Nebraska is going to win the game, but maybe they get it to the third overtime. Is the foul they called on Ulis was such a okay, we know this is coming. We're going to call it.
Yeah.
So that's part of that last play as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I say I think this officiating crew was tired. I think those guys worked a lot of games, and last night was, a slog. And I mean, they went over. They took a lot of time at the monitor last night. They bought themselves some time. I mean, I know Kelly Pfeiffer likes to run up and down the floor, but I thought their reactionary time last night was really, really slow. But so the Micah Parrish move, and then you can see off to the left in the background where they called the foul on Ulis. I don't know that's a hey, we know Nebraska wants to foul here. We're just going to call it.
You can't anticipate. You just can't anticipate that is going to happen because you can't act as if you know the strategy of what they're going to do. And at the same time, too, like Micah Parrish barely gets it in. Like he is at like the 5-second point when he throws that ball in. So even like from not just he's moving down the sideline call, but just from like a 5-second, I got to get this ball in. What the heck's going to happen? It saves them as well. I mean, you can't be reactionary like that. But my biggest problem just in sports in general is when you go to the monitor, when you go there and you still get the call wrong, when you go and you take your time and you look at what is going on and you still fail to figure out what actually occurred.
Yeah, the Bryce Williams flagrant one is
that, and the Asian. How many times have we seen that Asian out of bounds call where we go, hey, that's too close. There's not enough evidence to overturn something like that. Or we go, the classic cliche. What was the call on the field, Jim? You got to remember what the call on the field was. How many times have we seen that go, not enough. It's Nebraska's ball. No, I mean, it's just when they go, I just can't keep, it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating when you have stakes like that and a team is fighting for their lives. And it wasn't necessarily all about them not being able to get it done. There were external factors that went toward it. At the same time, they had opportunity after opportunity.
You got to create your breaks.
You do.
Because you're not going to get them. And again, up 5 in overtime on the road when you battled back, when you were down double figures, again on the road, and you have grinded and you fought through some of the stuff we were just mentioning that was called. And, you're going, how is that not a technical? I can slam the basketball. That's not tonic. I mean, Copeland somewhere is like, oh my God, I got screwed back in 2014. But then you have Bryce at the line. It's Nebraska basketball that they're not good enough top to bottom to overcome that kind of stuff. And so you get a frustrating night like last night that might keep them out of the NCAA tournament. Dean is with me as well on the final play of Micah Parrish moving. Now, there is the little 3-foot box, but the video from behind, because Peacock didn't have that video, but the video from behind that kind of looks down, count the people to Parrish's left that he ends up with. That's more than 3 feet. And Dean is with me here. He says, how does Pfeiffer miss that? It's right in front of him.
Right.
So I think, again, he's not seen that before. You don't see that. And he just kind of froze. That doesn't absolve that it's the wrong call. But it's tough. And Nebraska, in my opinion, has got to win 3 in a row if they want to be in the NCAA tournament.
In terms of Kelly Pfeiffer not seeing it before, there are just certain aspects of just life when you go, you know what? Like, that's what I know it's tough. That's what you're paid to do, though. Like, you are on a top stage. You are refereeing
he's a Final Four guy. I mean,
he's officiating a very important game and a very important conference that has a lot of stakes of what the postseason is going to look like. And it's 4 people, by the way. He moves 4 seats down.
All right. Coming up on the show, Chris Crutchfield, Summit League Coach of the Year, is going to join us at 8:30. Maps play tomorrow night in Sioux Falls in the opening round of the Summit League tournament. They'll take on either Oral Roberts or Kansas City at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. So Crutch will join us coming up at 8:30. It was a good day yesterday for Omaha men's basketball. Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, a couple of guys on the first team, member on the all-defensive team. But the Summit League Coach of the Year, first 2 years at Omaha, they won 24 games. This year they won 19. So Crutch will join us at 8:30. John Walker stops by at 9. He probably got some good sleep. He probably wrote that story. What do you think? The first media timeout?
Yeah. That had to be a pretty quick in and out type deal for Mr. John Walker.
Seton Hall is a poverty program. The one thing about Creighton is Creighton hammers the bottom of the Big East. They don't mess around with the DePauls and the Seton Halls. They just bludgeon them.
They don't play with their food. They
No.
don't. They just go out there, and there are some teams in the Big East who do get some scares from those teams.
UConn.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
who
one
lost
thing,
to that team.
That's one thing about
You're right.
There aren't many losses that you would consider like upset. Like you'll have one or two a year. You have a Georgetown loss, even though Georgetown last night beat Villanova, probably ended the stay of Kyle Neptune in Philadelphia. But Creighton won last night. They have Senior Day, which is still awkward now in college basketball, where you honor a 6th-year senior and then you honor a guy that's been there for 1 year. They have Butler left at home again. Nebraska has Iowa on Sunday.
I thought you were going to say it's awkward when they do it after the game. I'm not a big after the game senior night type dude. I feel like you risk it a little bit too much. You put it up for a little bit of awkwardness. I know, like, just say, hey, you know what, guys? Tip off is at 1, but we're going to start the ceremony at 12 o'clock. If you want to come here and you want to be for it and you want to honor your guys, go ahead.
What is, I don't know, to talk about on your point, does Iowa State do it after the game? Because they were getting run out of their building on senior night by BYU. BYU was up 21 last night over in Ames, and then Iowa State comes all the way back. That game, see, when you're on the Peacock and you can't get, like, you're watching on your phone. I was watching the Iowa State game. Like, how is this happening? I don't know if they do it after the game, because that would have been very awkward because they lost in double overtime.
I mean, that's the problem, Gary. That's why you do it beforehand, because then you're sitting there and you're like, these guys have just played an emotional.
But don't you do it after
game.
the game? Don't you do it after the game if you do speeches?
I think if you need
instead of recorded ones that happen before the game,
you need to put a clock on it. Hey guys, we're going to start here. It's going to be a 35-minute ceremony. We're going to bring you out. We're going to give you your jersey. We'll make you a nice little Nebraska women's basketball does it. They make you a nice little 2-minute video for each person. We'll play it. You'll come out. You'll get your thing. Head back to the locker room. Put your shoes on. Go warm up. Go play. Because now you just played 50 minutes in a really important Big 12 game, and in a game where the fans were absolutely in it the entire time, and then you're living and dying with what was going on. And then now after that, we got to go, hey, great career, man. You know, you may never play another important game like this ever again in your life. Go get him, Tiger. Slap him on the butt and let him walk away. Just do it before the game.
Brandon Vogel will stop by as well, coming up at the 9:40. That's the lineup brought to you by the referees at John Higgins Weather Guard. You can't be mad at Higgy. He's retired. 2 years into his retirement as a Final Four official. Quick note here, not to steal Traffic Man Peter's thunder, but part of West Dodge Road is closed due to a jackknife semi-truck. 228th and Dodge.
Oh, okay. A little further than me.
So
but
part of West Dodge Road is closed. It is a skating rink.
Yeah.
So just stay in. You know what? We'll keep you company for 4 hours.
Sun's coming out later.
Thank you, but I prefer Peter's traffic updates, Mr. Gary Sharp. I'm a Peter guy.
Wow.
I'm a Mr. Krenzer guy.
That's between you guys.
Peter didn't know who he was the other day.
That's not true.
It's true.
That is not true. That's not true.
You two should meet. He was here. He was filling in for Jimmy the other day.
Mm-hmm. He knows who I am. Him and I we've had multiple conversations together. Peter and I are friends.
Peter might disagree.
Oh yeah, Peter gave you his computer. He's
Peter
nice.
gave me his computer for 2 days
because of my came back and there were viruses all over it. It's like, what is he doing? What's he doing during the show?
I'm going to tell you something right now. His computer is so much better than my computer. I mean,
it did look pretty nice.
His computer was big. It was wide. You can have more than 8 tabs open without StreamYard absolutely taking a dump on itself. I had a great time using Peter's computer. In fact, I was thinking maybe I should buy Peter's computer from him because this thing, I mean, anyway, my computer's a piece of crap. I got to get a new one. Doesn't matter, regardless.
Well, you made money last night betting on Nebraska, right?
No, because I touched the money yesterday.
Well, you took Nebraska in 5.5.
No, I took a money line.
Oh.
I put my money where my mouth is. I said they were going to win, so I went money line. It was plus like 200 when I made the bet, and
I thought you went the spread.
No.
LeBron won me some money last night, so shout out LeBron.
Suckers bet to go money line as opposed to spread in my regard. But what did I say? I said that they would win. I didn't say they would cover. I said that they would win. But man, I was living and dying, just being like, I wanted
to delete that tweet.
No, I don't delete tweets.
Right.
I do not delete tweets. I will live with it. If you want to find it, you know what? And me potentially jinxing the team from winning the game, which by the way, I don't believe in jinx, but that's neither here nor there. Look,
great cat.
I wanted to be right so bad yesterday. Like part of my rooting.
There are a lot of people that wanted you to be right.
Because it's my alma mater and it's my team and I want them to go to the tournament. But man, I was like, you know what? I said on the radio they're going to win and they're right there and I wanted it so bad.
And then you hit send on a tweet to me in a reply. And I said, don't touch the money.
Though. You
How did I
enticed
entice
me. Because you tweeted at me and you predicted the stat line for Bryce Williams.
Because I went with Bryce's props last night.
That's why it was. Okay.
I was missing an assist of a big night.
Now, Gary, we didn't.
You go, Matt, I'm this far away from what I need. And I go, I'm this far away from what I need. That's what I thought it was. I wasn't saying, hey, Nebraska's going to win this game.
We didn't know each other back then, Gary, but you'll understand. So at Game 6 of the 2013 finals at 97-92, I fired off a tweet. I was celebrating.
Ray Allen.
Oh, yes. That was like Ray Jackson, just celebrating, pumping both fists. I learned a valuable lesson that night. Put the damn Twitter down till the game's over.
Yeah.
And then you can say what you say.
I might have learned that.
The ultimate lesson.
As well. Hey, isn't it funny, though? Like, that's the antithesis of this season. Bryce Williams goes out and he sets a Nebraska single game record for points in a game. Beats a 31-year-old record of 42 points, which, by the way, he did it at the very end of the game on a meaningless shot, regardless of it. Goes ahead,
Symbolic.
Breaks the record. And we sit up here and we talk about how it's got to be Bryce and it's got to be Alpha Bryce. And if Bryce is the guy and Bryce just takes all the shots, they're going to win the game. And he sets a single game record and they still lose.
That's
they
Nebraska
still
basketball.
lose.
Season tickets on sale now.
When it looked like they should have won that game 3 different times.
Yeah, they did it to themselves. What did he end up? 29 shots. 16 to 29, 5 of 9 from beyond the arc, 6 of 7 at the line. 43, 6 and 2 last night in 49 minutes. So he did not play for 1 minute and 11 seconds last night. And it was, let's be honest, it was number 3 versus 5 Buckeyes for a majority of the extra sessions last night.
Yeah.
And that's good, but there were times where they needed to help a brother out because that he was getting to the elbow and you knew that he was going to take the shot and people just kind of stood around.
It was there were a couple minutes, right, where you had a Sejan being a flamethrower and he was helping a brother out and he was getting you there. And then you had a couple minutes where it was Morgan who was contributing. He had 14 points yesterday, 5 of 8 shooting. And yesterday, Sam Hoiberg made the 2 biggest buckets of the game to keep the team in it with that 3-pointer followed up by a nice little layup. But it wasn't a full 40-minute complimentary basketball game. Guys had their spurts, but it wasn't hey, this is the offense. It wasn't fluid. It just wasn't fluid, and it wasn't consistent. And that's just what it's been all year. And it really just comes down to, okay, yes, this team, you can question their effort at some points in the season. And yes, at times they lost their identity. And yeah, yesterday they didn't get calls that went for him. But what it really boils down to is that they just don't have dudes. They're just not. They're just not good enough.
Hey.
They're just not good enough.
How many shots in the first overtime and second overtime were not taken by Bryce Williams?
How many?
I mean, he had 43, and everybody knew that he was going to get to the rim or he's going to take a shot.
I think it was 4.
2. Morgan and a Sejan.
They're just not good enough. It's just not good enough. The team is just not good enough.
This is Nebraska basketball. Teddy Allen goes for 40 plus, they lose. Bryce Williams goes for 43 on the road, and they lose.
Didn't Rink almost have 40 last year, and they won that game, but they nearly lost that game against Wisconsin. I mean, that was a nail biter to the very end.
Somebody one day will do a study when we're long gone about Nebraska basketball, and you keep coming back. So we'll see you on Sunday at Pinnacle Bank Arena in the late morning on Fox.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to that game, so because why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I, when the season's over, go to that game?
All right, a little bit later on the show, Chris Crutchfield. Also, there was men that are in charge of large men talking in Lincoln yesterday. So we'll get to that. Plus, we'll circle back to Creighton's yawner last night. It wasn't a yawner for one person, which it was most important game for them last night in Newark. It's Gary and Jinxie Smurf and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. Yay or nay on Stephen Bardo last night?
Nay.
Well, he just kept talking and talking. He didn't like the officials. That's been his thing this year. Like, he's hammered the officials more than I can ever recall Stephen Bardo doing. But, man, Stephen, let the game breathe, man. We don't have to talk all the time.
I am a Stephen Bardo.
Anti-Ray Scott.
I like Stephen.
I knew you'd get that.
Anti-Ray Scott.
I like Stephen Bardo most nights. Seriously. And he does announce a lot of the games that I watch for the Big Ten Network, no matter for whatever reason. I feel like I don't get a lot of Hummel.
I think he's a former Spur.
I feel like every time I get Robbie Hummel, like it's a sweet treat. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm
Yeah.
watching an important game. Like typically I'm watching the middle of the Big Ten and not like the top of the Big Ten. But so I get a lot of Bardo because of that. And I like him typically. Yesterday, and you know this, and both of you know this very well, he did the number one thing, or one of the top things you're not supposed to do on a broadcast, is where he kept jumping the gun, where he kept saying that things were what they were, and then he would look at the replay and be like, oh, actually, that's not the case.
Played one game for the Spurs in the 91-92 season, averaging no points, and he had one rebound.
Did you know? Were you like, I'm pretty sure at one point Stephen Bardo was a Spur, and then
Oh no, I was certain because I was there. Like I was like, I remember Stephen Bardo. I just didn't think it was one game. I thought he played longer.
Him?
Yeah, they were 47-35 that year, and Dave got hurt at the end of March, and just.
But I don't know if you stuck around. So even the post-game show went all in on the officials last night. What I would have liked them to do is I wish we would have a Casay Cam. Like some of the calls, I wanted to see reaction from Casay, who was sitting right behind the Nebraska bench with his fiance. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Hands on the head.
Yeah. I mean,
a Casay Cam. I think everybody just in Nebraska basketball who's a fan just wants a Casay Cam all the time. They just want wherever Casey's doing, just get a camera on him. Every time they see him, it's just happy thoughts and happy life.
There are not many athletes from Nebraska which you immediately see and you smile. Like when they showed Casay last night, was at the game. I mean, you immediately smile. There are like very few athletes that I've covered that's when you see them, you just smile.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Him and Jacques.
That's exactly what was said last night.
Every time I see Jaqueziant, I go, yeah.
Oh, I don't smile.
I smile.
Why?
I'm just kidding.
Because
it was a good joke.
Because he beat your Northwestern Wildcats.
The greatest game of his life.
Was it 56-7?
Yeah. I was also there.
I was on the sideline for that game. That was a bludgeoning.
Hey, we were back.
That was oh my God! I remember reading the articles, the post-game articles after that game.
That was the night they debuted the Killigans, wasn't it?
They didn't do it. Oh.
No, they debuted it because wasn't that a year before the Ireland game?
I was just making
terrible song.
I agree.
It is.
You guys are wrong. I'm sorry, boomers. I like it. All right, I like it.
Killigan song?
I love the Killigan song.
I didn't know this. Of course he does.
I enjoy it. What do you mean? Of course I do.
I would like
tune.
I would like the Killigan song if during the course of the song they took the current looking Herbie and dropped him off the back of Memorial Stadium to splatter on the ground below.
Kids love that.
Oh, they bring him out. That's with them when they shoot T-shirts into the crowd.
I almost did the spit take where you're calling for the good looking Herbie to die.
It ain't a good looking Herbie. The current mascot in Nebraska is god awful.
Oh, I thought okay. You want it back?
There are kids that are in therapy because of the look of that mascot.
You don't like the blonde hair, fat Herbie?
Mascot's got to go. You know what? I'd take the mascot out and throw him on I-80 right now with the conditions.
He'd slide right off.
If it happens, it happens.
The parts of I-80 that are open, of course.
Yeah.
Play hockey on
Thank
Dodge
God
right
that
now.
game wasn't in Lincoln.
Last night?
Yeah. Thank God.
Well, you're probably right. That would have been
brutal.
That'd be tough to come back from.
Brutal.
All right. Good morning, Andrew.
Drew.
Your buddy. How you doing?
We're doing well. How you doing?
Good. As I watched both games last night, I looked at the players on each team, and it comes to recruiting. And fitting the pieces together. Does Hoiberg do a lot of the recruiting, or not?
It's a joint effort. Him and Nate Lesnar do a lot of the recruiting.
Do they? What is he missing when he recruits? Because there seems to be no team chemistry with Nebraska.
Well, let's okay. we've discussed this ad nauseum this year. They settled.
Right.
They settled in the portal. They got reclamation projects. They haven't been able to develop them to get them to go to the next level. And where we're trying to make Nebraska's additions out of the portal this past offseason something that they're not. I'm not going to sit here and compare what Creighton has done because Creighton has been better in that category of portal additions that have been bangers. Jemiah Neal, for example, last night. His stats don't go crazy in the box score, but he has gotten so much better when he got here. Nebraska, Andrew, they did it to themselves with the way they constructed this roster out of the portal. They settled for guys, and then they missed on some key guys, and they are where they are. And that's why it's almost still crazy to think that they could still make the NCAA tournament. But, you do it to yourself.
Their player development as well. I think that has suffered a little bit. And I don't think you can really develop players when you have them for 1 year. You kind of get them as they are in a lot of ways.
Well, and that's why his 2 and 3 year guys, like Casay, developed.
Yes.
Sam Griesel went to another level, but he was only a 1 year guy.
He was good.
Even Bryce's game has gotten better from if you watch him at Charlotte. Like he was a scorer at Charlotte, but he has gotten better. But you're right. It is tough with a 1 year guy that's kind of a mercenary that comes in and collects a check and maybe tries to get to the league. But it's, it starts at the top. I mean, that's the bottom line. It starts at the top with how you put it together and how you go and shop for the groceries and how you make the meal.
Don't they, in their NLI money, don't they have quite a bit they could throw towards getting?
They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of money, and I don't think they spent smart money in the offseason.
Okay.
I think the money they spent in the offseason, if you're looking at last night's game, that was an expensive bench.
Yeah, I think
guys got
Bryce is a wonderful player, and you really see that they miss Mask.
Yes.
Horribly, because they just don't. He was a great player too. Too bad he's injured, and we may be talking about a different.
Oh, we would. He's a 5 that can shoot it outside, and they lack shooters.
Yeah, I thought he was wonderful last year. That's all I have to say.
All right, Andrew.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
That's another thing too with Mask. Like we've talked about the spacing aspect of the 4 out, and then sometimes they like to transition into 5 out and all that, but it's more than just his ability to space out the offense to complement the other pieces. It's also, he was a dude that you could give the ball to in the post, and he could do that little baby hook, and he can do that little drop step. And it's like, they kind of do that with Morgan, but, Mask is a better player than Morgan. But to have another guy, like in that overtime period, if they had Rink Mask, they wouldn't have had to go to Bryce Williams over and over and over again. They could have switched it up a bit and thrown it down into him. But that's kind of how it is, though. And you said it yesterday, like, I want to stop hearing about Mask and Casay. Like, I bring it up, but like,
to be fair,
I agree.
I brought up Casay because he was at the game.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, it's like that's how this team has been for the entirety of the year. We are at the end of the year. Like, this isn't a new thing that you can't give it to Rink down low in the post and you have to find other ways to score in crunch time. Like, there should be other solutions to this problem, because they've had all year to figure it out.
Yeah, they just have inconsistency of. Ulis gave him a nice little stretch last night. Sejan comes and goes. They
all come and go. All of them.
Do we have any come and goes left, Jimmy? Or they?
There's one by me.
There is? Okay.
Yeah, it hasn't mavericked yet.
Okay.
I had one by me.
That's what they're transitioning.
I think Nico
to.
Harrison killed that whole vibe.
When you come and go, you become a maverick. Everyone for Omaha.
When you come and tear your ACL.
Chris Crutchfield coming up at 8:30. Speaking of the Mavs, the Summer League coach
Different
of
Mavs.
the
Good
year.
Mavs.
We'll talk to John Walker as Creighton probably solidified where they're going to be in the tournament last night with their easy breezy win over Seton Hall.
Cover girl.
And we'll talk to Brandon Vogel. It's all part of Gary and Matt on a hump day at 1620 The Zone. All right, on cue, the girls' state basketball tournament begins in Lincoln in 2 hours. I
Didn't you call it?
Just noticed I-80 has closed from Grand Island to Greenwood. So, as of right now, the girls' state basketball tournament is set to clear the courts. It's tip-off at 9 a.m. So we'll keep you updated on that. But now I-80 is closed between Grand Island and Greenwood. And unless you have to be out there, I don't know why you'd be out there. Everybody's out of school today. UNO canceled.
Yeah.
Did Creighton? Creighton had to cancel, right?
Remote
learning?
Yeah, I can find out.
Now, has Nebraska? Because LPS was like late. I saw that this morning like at 4:45 that they had canceled school today. I wonder if UNL is in session today.
And I'll say I've been here almost 3 years, and Dodge, this is not a knock against anyone. This is just the flash freeze last night. They couldn't get anything down with the wind and the blizzard, but Dodge is by far the worst that I've seen since I've lived here. I mean, absolute sheet of ice from 192nd to West Roads.
It's one of those days where
they're trying. I saw the trucks out there. They really are trying.
Do you
It's
have
tough.
the different settings on your car where you can like turn your car into like that's
Put
like
it
today
in the
is
garage and close it. And
today
stay
is
home.
one of those days where it's like, man, I am so happy that I have that setting. But I'll tell you this right now. I was debating whether or not to admit this, but it's whatever.
Oh, nice.
I was so furious yesterday after the Nebraska-Ohio State game that in the weather that was
Yesterday, wasn't that this morning?
or last night, I walked outside and I pre-cleaned my car. That's how mad I was.
How
I
are you
went
able to
out
do
there,
that with that wind?
I went out there. It was tough. It was cold. It was brutal. It was awful. But I did it. I scraped the car completely off. I shoveled it completely
You
off.
just described Nebraska basketball.
Rough.
You're not talking about your car.
No, I mean, I was so mad that I was like, you know what? I need to feel pain right now. Like, I need to go through something difficult in order to get, like, I need to go through, like, I needed to have, like, a puzzle or something, like egregious to do to get off of my mind. That's how mad I was about what occurred.
Yeah, see, this is the Nebraska athletic fan, especially when it comes to this sport, men's basketball. Like yesterday, we got the full Mike Eckler experience, which is a good experience, and they should sell tickets to it to ride and have the kind of energy and, by the way, love of Nebraska football and his new boss.
Yeah.
You get the full experience, and you're like, dang, I might have to 4 hours, man. I got to find a pill to get rid of this because you're fully hussed when you listen to Mike Eckler.
You are.
And then you finish the night with Nebraska basketball and the missed opportunities and the missed whistles and all the stuff that goes into that. And Ohio State is tweeting out stats about, you know what, this is the first time since 1826 that Ohio State has given up 114 and have won in a game. A couple of emails here. Again, this is a safe place to let it all out about Nebraska basketball. The thing about it is they'll show up again on Sunday at PBA.
You know that a lot of people are going to be there. You know that the Haymarket is going to be popping. You know that the rail yard is going to be a party. Like, isn't that like the worst a little bit? Like when you just know that this team can continually put on a product.
It's the Wrigley Field effect of Nebraska basketball.
And like
the building is always going to be full or near full, regardless of what the product is on the floor and the roller coaster they take you on. We know the same thing as Cubs fans. Let's see here. Zach, we'll get a Zach email.
Yeah.
And he kind of, I'm just reading this now. As long as fans keep filling the seats of PBA to watch the garbage that the University of Nebraska puts on the basketball court, and as long as the media doesn't hold the university accountable for it, there is no real incentive for them to completely sell out to fix it. And it's the kind of the Wrigley Field effect.
It is.
But the person in charge of the program is trying to fix it.
I look at Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State and not Michigan or Michigan State because they have good teams this year, but mainly those three teams, Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State. And Oregon and Penn State, or Oregon and Ohio State, have quality type basketball programs this year that potentially could end up going to the NCAA tournament. And they are able to consistently sell out football games and consistently have people live and die with football. And they can't even get 7,000 people into a building to watch their basketball teams, who are pretty good this year, play super, super important games. Oregon played a massive game yesterday against Indiana that meant a lot for their postseason hopes, and they didn't have a home court advantage. And Ohio State I mean, that crowd got a little bit loud yesterday when it needed to or when there was momentum, but it wasn't that big of a home court advantage either. And then you look at Nebraska, and every single week, you got 13, 14,000 people in that building.
Does the crowd noise seem odd on Peacock?
It does.
Or was it weird yesterday?
It fluctuates a little bit where I think that maybe they turn it up a little bit. Maybe they adjust the volume. I don't know. Like there are moments where you visually see the crowd cheering, but it doesn't sound that loud. And then there are other moments where you see the same type of people stand up, but it's much louder. I don't know if they're playing with that or not. Overall, I think that Peacock does a really great job broadcasting the game. And the fact that programming is in 1080p and FS1 and ESPN, they broadcast in 720. When you have the one screen on the left and the second screen on the right, you can tell the difference.
Joey writes in, when the commentators are questioning calls that affected the game, that says a lot. Bardo couldn't even sugarcoat it as the game went on. He was exasperated.
He was.
But he's been doing that a lot in a lot of different games in the Big Ten. If you're sticking to the letter of the law on the flagrant, then why not stick to it on the 2 missed tees, taunting and slamming the ball by Ohio State? So during the break, I went back and looked. Like when it's Royal that slams the basketball, there's no official looking. Like they've all gone to where they're going for the free throw. Travel on the inbound pass with the ref right there. That's the biggest thing is Kelly Pfeiffer is standing right there looking at it. The others you can go, okay, even though it sucks, that falls under the category of judgment. But that's right there. That's right in front of you. Bryce getting more contact going to the rim than most of the calls that went Ohio State's way. But Bryce not getting a call, Big Ten officiating is trash. There's also the other thing that is new in the last couple of years in college basketball that I hate is if there's contact and the bucket goes in, they let it go. If there is contact and the bucket doesn't go, they call it. That's been a thing over the last couple of years that I absolutely hate. That happened a lot yesterday.
There were a couple times too, and maybe you caught this, and it wasn't egregious, but it was a couple times where I felt like they were guessing on the out of bounds. Like there was one where,
well, how about the Hoiberg where what's his name? Was it Mobley? Was out of control driving on the baseline underneath the bucket, and Sam was fighting through. I believe it was a screen, and didn't really. And
he was running with him.
And I think it was Bardo or Burmeister on the TV said, "Hey, he's out of control," and you just bailed him out. There were a lot of bailouts on both ends last night. Now, Ohio State got some calls that you're like, that they could be upset about. It was just when both coaches, and Jake Diebler wouldn't shut up. Like he was benefiting from some things, and he was still arguing. I'm like, come on, man. But all those guys were in on all three. I thought the officiating crew was tired last night.
It's an interesting, because it's a great analysis from you, because you don't even think about that. Like you don't even think to look at that. Or you don't even think to pay attention to that, because it's like you would just assume they're not playing the basketball game. They don't have the basketball. They're not going to the hoop. They're not doing anything like that. So you start to think.
Their steps in.
But they're getting their steps in, and they're doing it a lot. Like they're refereeing a lot of games. And so, yeah, sure, fatigue at this point of the season might be setting in. But at the same time, it's like, man, this game has super high stakes. And not only were they just inconsistent, they also were just wrong. That's the problem. Inconsistent refereeing is some of the worst stuff, because it's like you have no idea what the foul is. But to add on top of that, them just being flat out wrong, them just being incorrect and misinterpreting what is supposed to happen, that is the not even a cherry on top. That's a whole other Sunday we're talking about. And it's just like when your season's on the line, it's like, man, like you're right there. It just boils your blood. It boils my blood thinking about it now.
Well, there's two things. There's that of stuff that's right in front of you, and then the fact that Nebraska was up 5 in overtime.
Couldn't put the
nail in. You're on the road. You've come all the way back.
Put the nail in.
You've come all the way back, and you were up 5 in overtime. I mean, you're up 2 possessions in overtime and can't seal the deal. That's the story of Nebraska basketball, is missed opportunities. What was that? Is that the 7th loss last night in either overtime or by 5 points or less? Nebraska basketball has had a game within the last 10 days where they locked it in. They give up 49 to Michigan. Okay, 49 to Michigan. Michigan in their next game.
Win.
Michigan in their next game matched that with about 3 minutes to go in the first half. They give up 49 to Michigan, lost by a bucket. They scored 114, and I know at the end the last second shot made it closer, but They scored 114 on the road in 50 minutes and lost.
Wasn't that
That's welcome to hell that is the Nebraska basketball fandom. And are we ever going to get out of it?
that was a game yesterday
Go get me some dudes.
where it was going on and Ohio State was getting calls and Ohio State
Lots
was
of
making
dudes.
tough buckets and they
Yeah.
were fading away and buckets that you thought, like shots that you thought were bad ended up going in. And you're like, man, like Ohio State is
That
just
Michael
made
Redd?
to win this game.
Yeah.
But as Nebraska kept in it and kept a pace and kept along with them, you're like, all right, the longer this goes,
Yeah.
the more it favors Nebraska. The longer this continues, they're not going to be this hot. They're not going to keep getting these calls. It's eventually going to fall your way. And 50 minutes of basketball went on, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. They were one bucket away. You needed 1 2-pointer or 1 3-pointer up 5. And it was done, and it was over. And it was like you'd suck all the momentum out of Ohio State and all the momentum out of the, but you needed one bucket
Yeah, and you
to
put,
get to the tournament.
or just one made free throw. I mean, I'd take Bryce Williams back at the line. Just that 6 of 7 at the line.
I know, but it's so
Had
hard
one
for me
miss.
to. I haven't said anything about it because you know what? The guy scored 43 points. It's so
Oh,
hard
I know that's
to go back to that.
But
you
it's,
know?
it's
he's
the
sad about
unfortunate
it.
thing is, well, that's kind of forgotten about a little bit.
It is
because then he was on a roll and he was just doing everything. But I'd take him right back at the line with under 10 seconds to go with a chance to win the basketball game, and unfortunately missed the free throw. Welcome to Nebraska basketball.
he shoots 90%.
Yeah.
Shoots 90%
and
from
and
the free throw.
if
line.
you're a ball knower, he's first team all Big Ten. I don't
He
care that
is.
Nebraska's record is 7-13 or 8-12. He's an all Big Ten first team. Not throw him a scrap and put him on the second team. He is an all Big Ten first team. He had 43, and he has dragged this team.
he might be. I have to look. He
Imagine
might
him
have.
on some of your
He might have
favorite teams.
surpassed Nick Martinelli yesterday as the leading scorer in the Big Ten, which automatically you're the leading scorer in the Big Ten, and he's done it fairly efficiently.
So look up, I'm going to read this email from TL3.
Yeah.
Look up what they do when you vote and they send you the ballot. It's just conference-only stats.
Oh, is it?
But those are still pretty good. I mean, he's had an unbelievable 2-year run here.
He
The
has.
guy in 2 years scored over 1,000 points.
You could and you're way more of a historian about this stuff than I am, but like to have 1,000 points in 2 seasons and to lead a team to making a tournament, help be a part of leading a team to making the tournament last year and then being the alpha this year, and it's still crazy, but because of the bubble, they still have a chance to make the tournament this year. Like for what he's accomplished in a short amount of time and to connect with the fans in the way that he does, because Bryce Williams in 2 years has become a guy that when he plays professional basketball, Nebraska fans are going to claim. Like if he does well,
They should.
no matter where he goes, they're going to be like, no, that's our guy. And to make that impact that quickly is really impressive.
What him and Juwan combined for 67 of the 114, is that right?
Uh,
Juwan Gary ended up
at
with 24. Hell,
yeah.
the only reason Nebraska stayed in the game in the first half after falling again behind by double figures on the road right away is those two. That's the only reason that Nebraska was able to have fight in the second half to be able to get back into the game because of what Williams and Gary did. But something I mentioned last hour, as great as Bryce Williams is, he's one of the best scorers, just pure scores, it's the detriment because of the way the roster is built and who you have on the floor. Guys will stand around and watch.
Yeah. Too comfortable.
I saw it last year with Omaha, Frankie Fiddler. Fiddler was so good as a scorer, you're at the end of a shot clock or you need a bucket. Other guys would stand around and they're just like, hey, Frankie will go get it. You saw that last night. Hey, Bryce will go get it. And then when you look who they had out there as a combination, because I think their best combination on the floor is Dog Gary, Alpha Bryce, Sam, Asijan, and Andrew Morgan. I think that's their best fivesome. And they had some odd combinations because of foul trouble again last night. But when you don't have that lineup that I prefer, then you're like, okay, Asijan is the only other guy that can score from the outside, and so we're going to absolutely maul him. And so then Bryce has to do what Bryce does.
That lineup, though, that's the only one you trust to score, but do you trust it to rebound? That's a tough, and that happened yesterday. I mean, Ohio State,
Ohio
especially
State was so much fit. That's the other thing is Nebraska basketball is not really physically imposing.
No.
Like Ohio State looked like Ryan Day had some leftovers, so he sent him over to Jake Diebler to play
He'll help
basketball.
you.
Well, because look at the rim. Nebraska lacks that, and it's not like they've had it year after year. They lack the guy at the rim that's going to protect the rim or put you on the floor. Like Ohio State knew that, and they would attack guys at the 10, and they knew that their shot was probably not going to get blocked. And if there was a shot block attempt, they were going to get fouled. That's the difference. Ohio State you can tell that they are built a little bit different than, the scrappy, athletic Nebraska basketball team.
You were hoping that Braxton Mia was going to be that guy because he's so big, but the guy has 2 left feet and 2 right arms. I mean, it's ridiculous in the fact that like he struggles so much to like put his chest into a guy who's driving to the basket and like go up and aggressively grab a rebound. And like that is, though, when we talk about the poor roster construction and failure in the transfer portal, the fact that lineup, Asijan, Morgan, Hoiberg, Gary, Williams, is the only one that you really trust to efficiently have offense, possession in and possession out, yet you have to give up a ton in terms of physicality, height, defense, and rebounding in order just to get decent offense, just goes to show the failures that were, basically contributed in the offseason. Bryce Williams, by the way, he's the leading point getter in the Big Ten, 20.5 points. He is doing that while he's 6.5% away from being a 50-40-90 guy. He's 47.4.
That's pretty good.
36.2% from 3 while shooting 90% from the free throw line. I mean, to average 20 points in the Big Ten and nearly be one of the very few individuals to do 50-40-90, nearly. I mean, he's probably not going to get it, but the fact that he's in that discussion, and that was a guy who 2 years ago was playing at Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Should have been on the 92 team.
He's been a scorer throughout his career. I mean, dad, late father was a scorer. First team All Big Ten. TL30 writes in the Equitable Bank inbox. The first snowstorm of the year, it is always all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive vehicles in the ditch because the drivers are overconfident Richards. It's a yearly tradition that makes me smile every time.
There used to be people who would poo-poo you if you were driving slower in the snow. At least some people that I would listen to, the Pat McAfee show.
There's their first mistake.
They were.
Well,
if you're looking for advice on driving
it's not
in the
for everybody.
snow.
It's like an acquired taste.
Well,
it's the first time you take a swig of beer.
I actually started listening to them when they were Barstool Heartland, like when they were like Barstool like Indianapolis, and so that like they actually like I've been listening to them for quite a while, and they used to make fun of people all the time for driving slow in the snow. Now that I'm a snow driver, that's the stupidest thing ever. You take your time, okay? We are in no rush.
Just
I don't want to
stop
crash
in the middle of the
Just
road.
No, seriously. No one. There's ice everywhere on the road. Okay. At this point, the danger is way too high for me to worry or not about if I'm going to be to work 5 minutes later than I usually am. Okay. Let's just take our time. Let's make sure there's no fender benders. Let's make sure that I'm not jacking up my insurance, that I don't have to take my car to the mechanic so they can squeeze me for every dollar. Let's just go nice and slow. Make sure we're going slower. We're braking earlier. Let's just be safe out there.
This
Let's
traffic
just be safe.
report is
Take your
brought to you
time.
by-
Take your time.
Now, I will say that dude that stopped in the middle, he quickly got off Dodge because he realized, I don't think that's road.
And some of you are out there and you know that your car isn't built for this weather. Pack it in today. All right? Just pack it in.
People, boots on the ground, I think, are calling in.
Pack it in.
This PSA brought to you by Matt.
Thank you.
Quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little football, y'all, because it feels like football weather outside. Late November game at Memorial Stadium, or maybe a early December playoff game at Memorial Stadium. That's what the weather feels like. But you would take Mike Eckler. Mike Eckler single-handedly could melt all of the snow that is out there.
I think he's going to run the I-80 marathon today. I think today's the day he's going
He
to do
won't
it.
fall once.
He is
Not
the man.
once.
He spoke yesterday along with a couple other assistants. So we got football for you. We got a rich running back in Philadelphia. It's Gary and Matt with Jimmy at 1620 The Zone. Hey, March Madness is here. The bracket will be out. Conference tournaments are going on. And you know what? Before you know it, spring and summer. Grassroots basketball will be going on, and you'll be hooping it. And if you are high school level, 17 under boys and girls, you could be hooping it at AEF Academy in front of college coaches. Their spring and summer high school basketball tryouts are right around the corner. They want athletes that got the passion, the hustle, and the drive to compete because their coaches, Andy, Isaac, among others, are going to take you to the next level. Intense training, strategic gameplay, and opportunity to compete in front of college coaches. They're going to get you to where you can practice, okay? It's not all about games. They will get you to be the best player that you can be on and off the court. They provide the development and the exposure that you're looking for, plus they'll give you the key resources that you can take your game to the next level. Now, tryouts are free, the high school tryouts that are upcoming at AEF Academy, but registration is required. Go to their website, and on that website, you're going to find all kinds of great information because they've got camps going on, they got clinics, they've got other events that are going on at their beautiful location in 99th and Portal Road in Papillion. That website is aefacademy.com. AEF Academy, development driven. Hey, there are some places in this country that are warm, that are snow-free. Maybe in Key West
Oh,
would be a good spot to be. I'm watching Sasaki last night pitch for the Dodgers. It looked beautiful out in Arizona. He looked okay.
my roommate is going to Arizona tomorrow. I'm just so jealous. He's golfing. He's gonna go and gamble. He's gonna then go to a NASCAR race. It's just
Oh yeah, I forgot they're out there.
Yeah, they went from Daytona to Atlanta to Austin to Phoenix.
that's awesome. You know what?
And
This is the year.
Can't go to Fontana because it's.
This is the year I became a NASCAR guy. I know everyone says they're always going to the left, but I don't. I just like putting it on. It's like white noise, and then all of a sudden there's a big crash, and William Byron wins the race. I mean, it's kind of what it's been.
Reminds me of driving 410 in San Antonio as a kid.
So, girls' state basketball tournament's still on. It is the team's already in Lincoln. There's just 2 games at 9, but I-80 is closed right now between Grand Island and Greenwood. To add to your point you made about the drivers that you love on the street, Mike Bossman, Officer Mike Bossman, been an Omaha cop for maybe about 20-some years.
Wow. The ultimate boots on the
street. He
street.
just tweeted, some of the worst driving conditions of the season this morning. Stay home if you're able to. Otherwise, stay home anyway. And listen to Gary and Matt.
That's the law talking right
there.
there.
Did he actually tweet that?
No, but I added it. I'm probably here for that. 25 miles an hour is the max speed on Dodge right now.
Yes.
So, for idiots out there, 25 does not mean 40.
Yeah.
No.
And good morning.
Take
Thanks for listening.
your time. All right. Just no fender benders. No headlights being smashed. No mirrors being smashed. Just slow and steady. Hey, I want everyone to just look yourself in your rearview mirror right now and say,
Oh,
I
look
am
at the
the
road.
tortoise. I am the tortoise. I am the tortoise. Be the turtle today.
One of the replies
like
is
that.
one of the replies on the heels of TL3's email. He goes, that won't stop the imbecile with average all-season tires on his 4x4 from sliding into a ditch.
Hey,
He's
let's
correct.
not-
I've already seen
Some
it.
people can't get, all right, the highest quality tires and 4-wheels. Let's just look, I understand where we're coming from here, but let's not shame people for the type of tires they have. on
No,
their
he's
car,
shaming the
okay?
people that got the really expensive fancy pants tires.
If you need somebody to pick you up, apparently Fremont Fred. He goes, I've been to the office in Fremont and back on the road this morning. So Fred's got a good truck. So if you want to, if you need a lift, you know how to get a hold of
Fremont Fred.
Yes. All right, here is Old Man Doug.
Doug.
Good morning.
Are you already in the office?
Absolutely.
Have you shoveled
Absolutely.
already?
No, I didn't want to shovel and then have the wind just erase what I did. So the roads are decent. They're not great. By the way, Equitable is not opening until 10 a.m. this morning for, opening accounts and making deposits.
Having coffee with the boss.
Yeah. So most of us will be here. I have a very short commute. So last night, I'll just say Seton Hall is a horrible basketball team.
Thank you.
That's
yes,
one
they
hell
are.
of a lead.
Creighton did not play well, and maybe they just played down. I mean, they covered. They were a 10-point favorite, but it's a good thing Seton Hall was bad last night because Creighton's careless turnovers and sloppy passes and passes they just shouldn't make. It's going to cost them. I wasn't really encouraged from the performance last night, to be honest, other than McAndrew hitting some threes.
He did need that.
Yeah.
You'll find this funny. I was watching on my iPad on Peacock, and I was watching the Nebraska game, and I think it was the first overtime, and they were up by like 8 or something like that.
They're 5.
I fell asleep because I was like, hey, they got the game. And I think it was actually, they had a pretty good lead with just a little bit of time left. And then I woke up and I go, I'm assuming they won. And I checked Twitter and, oh my God, I hope Jack Mitchell's okay.
He wasn't. He was not okay.
I don't think there's a lot. Doug, I don't care if it's the hollower at KLIN. I don't think anybody is okay being a fan of Nebraska basketball right now.
It is, and then I watched all the questionable calls, and I was watching on Peacock as I was watching the president's speech with some friends, and so
Of course you were.
I can't tell you that I watched more than the score a little bit here and there. So I don't know. The officiating looked really bad. I agree. The guy was way past 3 feet, probably more like 6 feet. And you can, I don't know, what's somebody's shoulders width to width, 18 inches, like that. So, I mean, that's pretty easy. But none of them are worse than Jeff Anderson. High knees. He has there's a Twitter account that has the Jeffrey, I don't know if you follow it, Jeffrey Anderson.
I don't follow.
You know, the one thing he does, and I used to be an umpire, and these guys get evaluated more than I ever did, but I have to believe that he gets docked because he doesn't run. If you watch him, he doesn't run up the sidelines. He's way in play on the court a lot of times, and that's how he gets in the way. You're supposed to, and I repped some high school basketball 40-some years ago. You're supposed to run up the sidelines and stay out of the field of play, and he doesn't. But, yeah, the officiating was bad, and it's kind of unfortunate because they got a tough road to get in, and then Fran McCaffrey and company, they're just greasy enough to possibly win in Lincoln. What do you think that point spread's going to be? Maybe 5 for Nebraska?
I would probably say 3.5.
Okay, well, that's a tough loss, but I'll just ask the question, and maybe this isn't the day to ask it, but at what point are you guys going to divorce yourself from Fred in that the results just aren't there? I don't think next year at this point doesn't look good. Who knows? I mean, and he's got some really good players in the portal. Bryce Williams is a great player. I mean, and Gary's been a good addition, and Mast, but
you have helped us.
They need a couple other guys that they're developing that are there for 2 or 3 years, and they just don't have it.
Yeah. Doug, thanks for the phone call.
That was a lot. Hey, I do actually have an interesting point and maybe question for you / thing we can talk about from Doug's very long call.
It wasn't that long. He's longer.
He covers a lot of bases.
He does. Creighton wins yesterday by 18 points. Okay, they beat DePaul by 10 points a couple nights ago, and I feel like it's a little bit of this is one of the disadvantages playing in the Big East, where you have the bottom of the barrel, or the bottom of the barrel is so bad where you can handily win these games and be in control of these games from buzzer to buzzer, but yet you still can lose momentum. Like, it's even if you win these games, it's like, well, we still look bad, and that doesn't bode well for the future, and you still can weigh down on yourself, as opposed to the SEC and the Big Ten, where every win, it does not matter. It does not matter how you looked or anything like that, because it's so competitive. It's that's big, and that's great for momentum. When you play in the Big East and you play those teams, it's kind of hard to do that, because it's well, unless we look great, it doesn't matter what the result is.
Yeah, they're kind of slogging their way to the end of the regular season.
They are.
Thank you, Seton Hall, for being on the schedule post Xavier. To go to Seton Hall on a Tuesday night.
They're so
Thank
bad.
you for being Seton Hall. I don't think that says, oh my gosh, Creighton all of a sudden has momentum, because kind of a couple of things Doug was alluding to. What is it? Was it 14 Love second chance points? Now, Creighton in the second half only missed 3 shots. That second half flew. Everybody understood the assignment. This is a blowout. Let's Seton Hall, show up, but you're not going to get back into the game. But Creighton,
timeouts.
Creighton, I think, was 82% shooting the basketball.
Crazy.
Now, the only thing I wanted to see last night, last night was built for a McAndrew and a King. Role players that shine. Kalkbrenner got his 20, but I don't need to see in that game Kalkbrenner and Ashworth, and even to a lesser extent Neal. That game last night was for them. The one thing is you would have liked to see in a game like that where McAndrew has more opportunities, and he hit shots when he was open. He hit 5 threes last night, had 17. And little do I know, I'm questioning, do you think they he's swimming in it? Do they take him out of the lineup, let him? No. He'll shoot his way out of it. That's how Mac always is like, I'm a guy.
Sure.
If a guy's a shooter, he's going to find his stroke. Is can they find Trout before the NCAA tournament? See, that would have been last night of a perfect guy to go along with McAndrew and King. They're like, hey, feel good game. It is Seton Hall, but man, you feel good getting back on that plane and going home with one game to go. Trout didn't join the party last night.
And
I think they're going to need him either in New York City or in the NCAA tournament.
when they're playing their best basketball, he's playing at a high level. He's scoring 8 to 12 points a game. He's spreading the floor. He's hitting threes. And it's almost as if like it's nothing against Frederick King, but with how this roster is constructed and what they have and what they don't have, you kind of wish that Trout had the game that King had in having double-digit points and looking good from the field, because you just know that in terms of them winning and getting to the Sweet 16 or making a run in the tournament, it's one of those things where it's like you're going to need Trout to play at a higher level more consistently than you would King with just how things are the way they are. But I just think like this 5-game stretch was real prime for them to look dominant and gain confidence and get themselves rolling going into the Big East and NCAA tournament, and even put themselves at that 7 seed line so they don't have to play one of these juggernaut ones. And it just hasn't been that. They just haven't gotten it rolling. They haven't built that confidence.
Yeah, I
they
think
haven't put themselves in that position.
I think yesterday, so they don't have a hiccup, they established their floor of a seed. So they won't go any lower than a 9.
Yeah.
I don't know that they can get to a 7 because we hear everybody say how much of not a value the tournaments are. And the Big East isn't like a banger. So they're probably sitting in the 8-9 game. Now you have to decide, okay, who would be our most ideal matchup? And then if we win, who would be the number 1 seed that we'd like to be across from that we could say, okay, we got an opportunity the way that we are built. But I think they won't drop any lower than a 9. So I think they're an 8 or a 9er. And if something happens above them, there's like anarchy. They could maybe slide to a 7, but I think I would prepare for an 8-9 game in a couple weeks.
They had beaten Xavier and ended the season 5-0 after being super competitive with UConn and St. John's. I think they could have. I mean, that Xavier loss is really going to be one of those things where it's like you were down 8 and they go on that massive run and they just pull away, and you're like, man, like you'd love to have that, because once again, like you want to play. You'd much rather prefer to play the 2 seeds than the 1 seeds if you're any team in the NCAA
See, I don't know
tournament.
that game affected Creighton. It was more for the benefit of Xavier, which still crazy that Shelby Mast has them as last 4 out.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're still out.
They're a good basketball team. You have to, I don't know. I think they've been sitting 8-9 for a while, and that's okay. I mean, if you consider the season and the start and the injury, and how they're inconsistent outside of 11-1, and sometimes they're inconsistent.
Exactly.
You would take. I think for a successful season for Creighton, when you take it as a whole, you take an 8-9 game.
Oh, after the Pop Isaacs injury and what happened in Vegas, and the blowout in Georgetown, and how like after that it was all about figuring out the team. And at one point we were saying, "Hey, you have to beat UConn on the road, or this would be a big game," and like you're trying to put the math together of like whether or not they can make the tournament. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think you're any worse than a 9. I don't know that you can get to a 7, winning the conference tournament for the first time ever. Would that carry much weight?
That is I don't want to call it a dirty little secret, but like Stephen Ashworth definitely over the last couple of weeks hasn't been playing his best basketball. And that's gotta change if this team wants themselves to make a run.
He looks like a guy that's played a lot of minutes against the Big East.
Yeah.
And that has been, bodied.
Yeah.
All right. We will talk some football when we come back, because Mike Eckler spoke yesterday. There were a couple other guys that spoke, but it was all Mike Eckler. It's the full Mike Eckler experience, which they should sell tickets to, because he is a ball of energy. Good to see him back, man. You can tell that guy is in a nice comfort zone, big smile on his face, and had lots to say yesterday.
He had a lot to say.
Every time a guy that replaces a former assistant coach here speaks, you're like, Jesus. Rule, you do get a mulligan. That first-year staff. Ed Foley did not have a good day yesterday.
No. But at the same time, somehow Mike Eckler went long, and it was still shorter than almost all the Ed Foley press conferences.
We're back with more after this.
Oh, unlike Nebrasketball, I won last night. And this basketball season, when your favorite star scores buckets, well, he wasn't my favorite star, but he was for a night. We're alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. You want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, I didn't win that, but I'm still pretty pleased. You can with Underdog. To play, choose whether a player would go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, rebounds, more. They got all your favorite leagues, team stars to choose from. You can create entries with all basketball picks. Remember, this is not just the NBA. You can do college. You can do them both. You can mix and match across the other sports. Anything that you want to mix and match to win money. This week on Underdog, I'm diving in on some more NBA because the Lakers helped me win. Well, it's about time they actually helped me do something after all these years. If you know, you know. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on all the fun when you sign up with promo code ZONE. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska, present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
All right, coming up at 8:30, the Summit League Coach of the Year, Chris Crutchfield.
It's going to be awesome.
Markel Sutton was named the Player of the Year. 2 guys in their 3rd year, they got rewarded. They always say day one guys.
Day one or one day, Gary. Day one or one day.
I hope for a 4-day stay in Sioux Falls. That's all. That's all.
Hey,
I'm not Jinxie Smurf like yourself.
Well, I think you are, because you just said 4 days. You're not looking for 4 days at the Summit League tournament. You're looking for 1 day plus 1 day plus 1 day plus 1 day, because you know what? You take it a game at a time. Take it a game at a time.
Okay. Jinxie Smurf.
I'm not Jinxie Smurf. You baited me.
How did I bait you last night?
Because you tweeted at me and you said, I'm this amount away from this type of wager. And you knew that I had a wager, and you knew that I was on the edge of my seat, and that I had confidently planted my flag in the fact that I believed that Nebraska was going to win yesterday, just like I planted a flag in Mount Happer.
I don't think
And
it's
I
there
was
anymore.
on pins and needles on the edge of my seat. And I thought I was going to be vindicated and proven right by the Nebraska basketball team. And my heart was ripped out of my chest.
My tweet was about props for Bryce.
You baited me. You knew what you were doing.
How did I bait you?
You knew what you knew. I had a bet on the game.
I did
and
not
you
take your
wanted me-
fingers and put, I'm 2:30 away from a 6 a.m. victory lap. Mark responded, for someone that gambles as much as you do, you should know better than to hit send on that.
Mark knows.
And hashtag jinx.
Even Mark
Jinxie
knows
Smurf.
that I know better. I'm
right.
not Jinxie Smurf. I'm just saying. Like,
I'm
you
surprised
set
you
it up.
went all in there. I'd have just waited, knowing the team and who you were watching. I'd have just waited
I
till the game
wasn't
was over and then
thinking-
given it
I
10
wasn't
minutes.
thinking, Jimmy. We were up 5
That's
with
true.
2 minutes to go.
I wasn't thinking in 2013
we had all,
either.
We had all. We had all the momentum.
He hasn't been around very long. He hasn't been part of the fandom. So
But
you
even I
you
know I'd have
understand
wait.
Nebraska basketball, you don't touch the money.
See, I understand. Like, I know what
I'm
you're
not
coming
scheduled
from
to
that.
tweet for
Like, in
6 a.m.
comparison to you and the other people we talked to, but at the same time, we can't act as if
No,
I'm
the
exempt.
younger generation
wait.
doesn't get our pain.
We can't act as if I'm exempt from not knowing sport pain, because I root for the Cubs and I root for
Trust
the
me.
Bears and I root for the
Trust me.
Bulls.
Nebraska basketball pain is like none
You're talking
other.
to a Northwestern football and basketball
true.
fan. All I know is getting run over every single year by every team, hoping that once every 4 seasons we'll have a decent go at it.
I do see it a lot
I do give
differently,
you credit
Gary.
because you admit that out loud, that you're a
Well, why is-
Northwestern
why is it-
basketball and football fan.
Yeah, my dad went there. We grew up. We went to Welsh Ryan Arena and Ryan Field all the time.
Explains a lot about you.
It was. I don't know what that means, but
It's a
you know
loud
what?
PA.
I'll just take it and run with it. You know, I don't. Does it mean that I'm smart? Does it mean I'm resilient? Does it mean I've gone through a lot of adversity? Does it mean that I'm tough? Does it mean that I stick with people through thick and through thin? Well, if that's what that means, I am a Northwestern basketball fan.
Didn't say football, though.
Yeah,
We might be riding your Northwestern basketball bandwagon.
I told you I've
if they
taken more
beat
interest.
UCLA, man, if they had beaten UCLA, and then you start thinking about the Penn State loss, and you start thinking about the Iowa Hawkeye loss. Like, it's been a rough.
Wait, which team are we talking about again?
It's been a rough.
I can't keep up.
Rough sports season for me.
Hmm.
It's been a rough sports season. All my teams have either just sucked or they've just been good enough to break my heart.
Now, that's the part that, is that's last night.
Damn.
That's last night. That's
That's
Nebraska
deep.
basketball.
Like,
Up 5 in overtime. Before that, in the interregulation, you have Bryce at the line to seal a game, and you'd be like, how did Nebraska win this game? They were down 11. It didn't look good. They continued to fight. And then they got some things that were not going their way. They won this game. Let's get the hell out of Columbus. We just stole this game. And then you know what? It got stolen from them. No, I can't say that.
my teams just are absolutely terrible, and the season doesn't even matter from like the first 2 weeks of the year, or they're just slightly above average enough to give me
Hey.
hope that they can accomplish something.
But I think we're
and
going to
then
be
they
okay.
don't
We
accomplish it.
do share one professional baseball team.
Who Pacoda is saying we're going to win 90 games, which that's just setting up for us to get our hearts
There are
ripped
very
out.
few teams in spring training that have had a 16-0 lead on San Diego. So just know that. Chris Crutchfield coming up at 8:30. John Walker on Creighton and the Big East. Plus, we will chat with Brandon Vogel as we go to break, and we'll continue this on the other side because I really do want to talk about Mike Eckler.
No, we will.
I'm a huge Mike Eckler fan.
I became one.
Yeah, that was your first interaction with
My
him yesterday.
first
weren't you?
ever interaction.
He's a
I
good
got
dude,
I
isn't
got
he?
a pretty funny.
Yeah.
I got a pretty funny anecdote
like
from
him.
it.
If you knew that he coached football, but you had no idea what position Mike Eckler coached, what would you think that he coaches?
Okay, and this isn't like because I know in the past, I honestly would say linebackers. Like he's just kind of he's got that little twitch and that little like anger, but he's also very smart. But he's also a dude like he played in the past. He's built like it to this day. He's still built like an athlete, still built like a guy who played that position. So I honestly even though I do know his past, I would say like that guy's a linebackers coach.
I mean, he hadn't been here for 15 years. You would have thought that he was just away for a day or two when he spoke yesterday. I noticed that I noticed he's going to be wearing his new hat.
What?
You don't normally see him in a hat, but he's got a new hat.
That's what
I
I
guess.
thought.
His MSTC hat. Make special teams cool.
Okay.
I thought it was a Terry
I was like, he wasn't wearing a hat yesterday. His hair was actually very nicely coiffed. I was very impressed with the head of hair.
Great word.
Thank you.
Great hair, too.
All right, 2 in the books, 2 to go. It's halftime on the week. Chris Crutchfield coming up in the next hour. And we'll see if Mike Eckler can make special teams cool. Not again, because we haven't had that for a while. But make special teams cool. He might be the guy to do it.
Please.
It's Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, the sun is coming out. I notice more cars are out on the road. Dodge is here at 50th and Capitol is almost back down to the pavement.
That car took kind of a rough bump there on the snow. That was almost bad. It kind of slid. Not great.
We survived the blizzard of 2025, but there are a lot of interstates. One main interstate that travels through the state, they're going to rename it to I-80, is shut down for a good portion.
Jeez.
So plan accordingly. If you're driving from Omaha to Lincoln, Greenwood is where I-80 is shut down.
Yeah, I'll take Jimmy's side on this one.
WFH.
Don't.
At least for half the day.
Don't.
It'd be nicer
Just
later.
don't.
Hey, trying to get down to the girls' state basketball tournament? Want to support Pender?
What are the chances that you and I are the only host, or just all three of us the only collective full show together?
The
today?
producers will be here. That's it.
So
Connor will be here.
Connor makes it in.
Yeah.
Connor
likes to come to work.
So I'm judging off a tweet. I don't think Creighton or Nebraska came back last night.
I wonder.
Really?
It looks like Bishop is in some hotel ballroom eating breakfast.
Nice. Cup of coffee. Enjoying
Which,
himself.
I mean,
That's how we figure out Creighton's travel schedule. Through the John Bishop tweets.
Well, maybe not. I don't
breakfast
know.
place at Teterboro.
The John Bishop Continental Breakfast Hotel reviews.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a good skit.
So it looks like they did not come back from New Jersey. We had this was 2018. We were playing in Fargo, and the whole state was shut down. Purdue was playing at Nebraska. Georgetown was here. It was nasty. Like, you're getting word of signs on the interstate, on the overpasses. The wind was so crazy that it had fallen down.
I believe it.
So Purdue and Georgetown didn't go anywhere. They shut down Epley. We got 12, 13 inches of snow. So we were supposed to come back. We played earlier in the day at North Dakota State. So we were flying back on a charter. And, from afar, we're watching all the reports that Omaha and Nebraska are shut down. Epley is shut down. And they shut down Epley at 5 p.m. And we're supposed to leave at 9.
Oh.
So the pilot, head coach at the time, Darren Hansen, he's like, "Are we going to be okay?" He goes, "As long as I can see the runway, I can land."
Man, I've seen La Bamba. That makes me nervous.
So TAC Air at the time.
That is not the words you want to hear from your pilot.
Oh, we'll see.
So TAC Air is open. That's the only private aircraft that's coming, and we could take off in Fargo. But yeah, he was like, he goes, "I got this." Now, he wasn't dressed normally as a pilot. He had jeans and a Carhartt on.
Was he like Carroll Shelby in Ford versus Ferrari? You mind if I land it?
I mean, I'm like, okay, you're flying a 54-seat nice charter airplane, and all you need to do is if I can see the ground, he goes, I can land. So as we get closer to Omaha, and he gets kind of below the clouds, you can see, I mean, there is snow everywhere. And as we get close to Epley,
you're like, I can't see the runway.
Well, the runway was snow-packed. And so
you're like, oh, we've had a good run.
So I'm like,
the panic attack because I'm not good on flights. We talked about this. The panic attack I would have if I were in that plane would be ridiculous.
So we're all looking out the window. You're like, there are a couple people on the plane like you that were like, okay.
You're like, well, at least they'll make a movie about us.
He put it down smooth. And so the only hiccup was there was so much snow, they had to bring a plow out to get a pathway so that we could get off the plane.
Who is this, Sully?
He was great. And he was like, "Hey, I hope you guys had a good time." So he took right back off and flew to Fargo.
Was that a John Baylor impression?
But from TAC Air to get home, it took so essentially Epley to 67th and Center. It took almost 2 hours.
Oh, I believe it. That's bad.
Yeah.
So this is nighttime, right?
But he goes, as long as I can see the runway and the ground, he goes, I can land.
Wouldn't you want aren't you glad though that the guy had a lot of confidence? Like you would be way more scared if he was in proper button-up uniform and he was like, well, I don't know. I think we're gonna be fine. It's gonna, it all depends about this. Aren't you glad that the guy was a little bit roughed up and he was like, no, Gare, I got it. I'm gonna land it. I'd rather have
after
that
we
guy.
landed. Yes.
Yeah.
When we first got on the plane,
you thought he was crazy.
He's like, "Hey, don't worry, guys." He goes, "This will be a nice smooth trip." And we're all on our phones of Yeah.
Armageddon is coming.
Yes. Well,
And
like
the guy was like, "Oh, we're
they were saying, no, shut down. Epley is shut down. He's like, no. He goes, we don't. He goes, we don't have the same rules as those aircraft.
He's like, they're not me. All right, they're not. They don't got JJ Bittenbinder flying the plane right now. All right, let me tell you something. Like this is just a Sunday in the Keys. All right, this isn't a snowstorm in Omaha.
So it looks like Creighton men's basketball did not come back. Let me see about Nebraska because
It would make sense if they didn't, because when did that game end? 12 a.m. in Columbus?
I was close.
It was damn near.
Well, with all the
no.
wind, that would be the hard part.
It was
about
so
landing.
funny to see when the first overtime, like when the regulation ended, how many
Mhm.
people were leaving for the exits. They're like, all right, we're done.
I've always
We
thought
got our
that.
40 minutes in.
Why?
We're going home.
They did that at
They were
Spurs
there.
games. Overtime. Where are you going?
They were there to say that they were a fan and they were at the game. That's why, I mean, the amount of people
There's
that
no
leave a
subway
that leave a
station
Cubs game at the 8th inning is mind-boggling. I mean,
Yeah.
it happens at a lot of places.
there is no time for me to fly from Seamus. So looks like Nebraska stayed in Columbus and
That's how
Creighton
you
stayed in
judge
New
it.
Jersey. Well,
You look up, oh, I wonder what the flight schedule is. Let me look up the Media and Communications guy's Twitter.
all right, to Mike Eckler. So Mike Eckler met the media for the first time in his return to Nebraska, and he is Mike Eckler. He is full of energy, positivity, loves Nebraska. I mean,
Yes.
the fam is here. The fam, dad is living in Fremont. He's back at a place that was pretty good to him. A place that I don't know if Matt Rule is not the head coach and Mike Eckler returns, but whatever Rule said to him got him to return. But this just shows you how poor special teams have been around here. Just by Mike Eckler speaking, and we like him.
Yeah.
It just shows you how bad special teams have been, because he doesn't really know who's going to be on units and who tried to talk about the kicker a little bit, but he was very generic.
Very generic.
But we were like, oh my God, this is great. Mike Eckler what is Mike Eckler's war? It just shows you how bad the last 2 years and of late special teams have had. But the fact that he is cool and he's got energy, I can see why he has the personality of a special teams coach. I don't think a special teams coach, because that's a tough job. I don't think you can be boring. I think you have to be quirky. There has to be something unique about
There's
you.
got to be something a little off of
because
the
you want to attract other people.
Yes.
Like, oh God, I got to go play for boring coach. Instead, you're going to go play for a guy that is bouncing off the wall, that is like and you're like, okay, he is making special teams fun again. I'm going to give it a look. I'm not going to dread playing over there. It was everything that I thought it was. And man, he loves this place. And it was pretty cool you could feel it from him. But I think we have to, maybe a little tongue in cheek, new special teams coach who walks in the door with credibility and success. Like, you just Google him and you Google Tennessee special teams. You're like, okay, they're much better than our special teams last year. What is Mike Eckler's war before he's actually coached in Mike Eckler 2.0 at Nebraska?
Before he's coached, I would give him a 1.3.
Which could make the difference between the under or the over.
Yes, 8 and 4 to 7 and 5. But first off, I go to these press conferences and I take notes. Okay, Addison Williams' notes and Terry Braden's notes were combined 3/4 of a page. Mike Eckler's notes was a full page of notes. Reading just some of them, he led off the press conference with going, there's this great saying, my ass, my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, this is different. I mean, this is what we're leading off with. He goes, another quote, you ever see a donkey win the Kentucky Derby?
I've heard that one
Oh, by the
before.
way, but pause there for a moment.
Go out. No, I'll keep going. You interrupt me.
I love that he mentioned speed, because I think this has been lacking in this program. Now, they have dudes on the defensive side that are young, that are going to play a bit, so they're going to be faster on defense. But across the board, Nebraska has to get faster. I love that he brought speed up.
So my favorite thing that he brought up, and it's on the same line, is he goes, when we were at Tennessee, we had all walk-ons and we had all freshmen, and we were stopping first-round picks, right? And he made it clear, it's like, we're going to do that here. And like, he talked about the importance of finding out if because we see all the star rankings, right? And we think these guys are going to be a certain way. But he almost alluded to special teams being the barometer and first test of a young player. If, hey, we're going to put this guy out there and we're going to see if the lights are bright. We're going to see if he can compete. And if we know that he can go out and he can compete and develop in special teams, he can compete and develop as a dude, as just a player. I loved that from him. RLS, real life shizzle, as he put it. I think we all know what the S word was. I will do whatever the head ball coach wants me to do. I'm a blue collar guy. We just strap on the pads and hit. And then I went to the Harvard in coaching. So he's a Harvard graduate. I mean, the guy's electric. I've never seen anyone teeter so much on being really smart and very intelligent and like knowledgeable, but also just being just intense and wired. And I asked him a question. And, I go, hey, Matt McMaster, 1620 to zone. Immediately locks eyes on me. And I asked him, how do you differentiate, skill set and effort? And for a minute straight, he just looked me dead in the eye, didn't blink, just like a little bit intimidated. I got a little bit intimidated with Mike Eckler staring me down the barrel and telling me why effort and skill is so important. And I'm like, yes, man, I'm writing down. I'm just, yes, sir. Okay. Sounds good. It was incredible. I mean, he's electric.
He's good. He's good at what he does. I hope, and I don't know their structure, but I hope they allow him to recruit because he's a really good recruiter. Now, he didn't need to help with linebackers, but he could. But he's coming along at the right time. There's another part of where he just was, and a lot of discussion about the staff of yesterday. A guy that was at Central Florida who they didn't do very well last year. Then you had a guy that was with the Kansas City Chiefs. They did very well last year, except for one game. And then you brought a guy from Tennessee who was in the playoff. Mm-hmm. The one thing about Rule's staff is there are more winners, guys from winning programs most recently that are on the staff than they were on the original staff. And I think that goes a long way. If you're at a place like Tennessee that takes football as seriously as it is, I was very disappointed he did not talk about the series being ended between Nebraska and Tennessee. I thought that would have been a good discussion. Probably would have pissed off some people off in Knoxville.
Sure.
Because he would have had a different opinion probably about a month ago. But at Tennessee, they play it at a high level. The expectations are through the roof, and they're really, really good. So if you bring people from that program, what do? They're sponges. And he's a lifelong learner, which he has alluded to before. So he's a sponge. So you walk from a program that was in the college football playoff to a program that just made a bowl for the first time since 16. I think having more guys that have more recent success of being around winners is also a really kind of hidden aspect of Rule's staff 2.0.
Sure.
Because you brought a lot of guys from a staff 1.0 that had gotten fired. They got fired for a reason.
Yeah.
They weren't very good.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Satterfield at South Carolina and they were just beating down the door. Out the door he went. They beat Tennessee and we went, whoa. But what were they, 500?
When
he left from South Carolina to Nebraska?
When Satterfield left, just look at the Twitter. People were happy. South Carolina fans were like, you can have them. And that was the same thing with Matt Rule and his entire staff. When they left Carolina, it was weird.
They were losers.
It was.
I don't care if it was the Dave Tepper situation. You were around a losing culture. You had that. Okay. Now he is kind of reversed, and he's like, I don't want to be known as that. But they've added guys in the offseason that have, again, been in the playoff last year, or they've been winning. So you're coming to a program that hasn't won. That's what this program needs. It needs more winners. It doesn't need, and I'm not going to say losers, it needs to hand the blueprint to go, this is how we win, because there hasn't been enough winners. Or if there was a winner off an unbeaten season, he doesn't have a blueprint. He's just like, we just win.
So yesterday I listened to a Howie Roseman interview. And in the Howie Roseman interview, Todd McShay said, it was on his podcast, he goes, what is the key to winning? And he goes, surrounding yourself with people who are good at their job and who you love to work with. And I asked Terry Braden yesterday along the same lines to go, you come from a modern NFL dynasty. What are the nuances, like learning how to win? What are the nuances to winning? He goes, being around good people. And let's go back to Howie Roseman. He goes, the first part of that was people who are good at their job. Nebraska and Matt Rule have hired people who are better at their job than that first go around of staff members. Plain and simple. He hired people who he loved to work with, but he didn't get that first part done. He didn't hire the guys who necessarily were great at their job. Some were. Terrence Knighton was a really good defensive lines coach, but there were other guys who weren't, who, didn't have that experience, who didn't have a room before. He's now brought in these guys where he knows that, okay, yeah, I want to work with people that I like, but at the same time, I'll learn to like some of these people if it means that I got to bring them in, they're great at their job. And you can tell that there's levels to these things. And these three guys who talked yesterday proved that with the past regime of people who talked previously.
Absolutely. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Chris Crutchfield. They've got something going on, so we're going to move Crutch up. We'll talk to him coming up in the next segment. John Walker as well, and Brandon Vogel on 1620 The Zone. All right, coming up tomorrow night, 6 o'clock in Sioux Falls at the Denny Sanford Premier Center, Omaha. They won the last three to win the regular season. Win the next three, go into the NCAA tournament. They'll take on the winner of tonight's play-in game in Sioux Falls between Oral Roberts and Kansas City. And the head Mav will be on the sidelines. It is the coach.
Good morning, Gary. How you doing?
Good. I know that you are going to deflect everything if I try and ask a question about being named Coach of the Year. So let's go at it this way. There were some, as you referred to, day one guys that got rewarded yesterday, and you're a day one guy as well. What did that mean for the program after the season that we have had to hear that the Summit League peers recognize Markel, JJ, Jay-Sean, and there were a couple of others. This is the year. This is the most Mavs that have ever been nominated for awards. But what did that mean for your program to see those guys rewarded for their efforts?
Well, probably just the fact that the media and the coaches kind of wanted those guys as being the top players in our league and guys that earned their respect throughout the season, how they played, and their consistency and their effort, and the fact that, Omaha won some games because there hadn't been in the past, that there hadn't been a thing. So all of a sudden now guys get individual recognition, which is rightfully so and rightfully deserved. They worked their butt off to get to this point, and I'm just so proud. And you know this because they stay with it. They stay with it, and this generation of guys not staying with things and guys moving on to something bigger and better, or things don't go the way they think they should go, they move on, and those four guys stay. They stay with it, and I'm just so proud of that. And we need more of that in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Coach Matt here. Just want to congratulate you on a great season you guys had, and winning Coach of the Year. When you first came on the show,
Matt.
of course. When you first came on the show, I think it was about a month and a half, 2 months ago. The first question I ever asked you was about Markel Sutton, and he was having a pretty good start to the season. And you talked about a guy who you came in with, and not only was it developing him as a basketball player, but it was developing his body, having him grow into being a physical player. Did you ever think that when you saw him, when he came into the program, when you first started coaching him, when you saw this skinnier looking dude, that he could develop into the best damn player in the Summit League?
Well, I didn't quite know he would be the player of the year of the Summit League. I didn't know that. But I did think that he had some upside and potential to really, really fill his body out. He was athletic. He was willing to work. He just was naive to the process of what it's going to take. And he listened. He listened, and he did everything we asked him to do. And you're talking about a comprehensive development. I mean, you're talking about a kid that wouldn't say 2 words to you when he got here.
True.
And Gary knows this because now he talks. Now he's one of our leaders.
That's awesome.
He can do an interview now without getting stuck. I mean, so he's come a long way from from Connors State Junior College to being the player of the year, and we couldn't be more happy with his development and how he's turned out.
Hey, there's the one thing I like about this team, and it truly is a team, and it's truly a family. Like, guys hang out with each other. They like being around each other. I think they love each other, and they are great teammates, and they're trying to pick each other up. And they're also very good at what they are at Omaha to do, and that is to play basketball. But there's also the part of we've dealt with some adversity and guys individually. And one guy, and he's very much a character, and he always brings a smile to my face. And he has really taken a huge jump from his sophomore to his junior year. But Crutch, I don't think the story is told enough. And I was so glad to see he was on the all-defensive team yesterday, and Jay-Sean Glover. We went to the Summit League tournament last year, and Jay-Sean had been out about 6 weeks because of a serious health issue that he was dealing with. He comes up to Sioux Falls. He's at the game, and we're like, my God, he has lost so much weight. Is he ever going to play basketball again? That was a year ago. He's going to go to Sioux Falls to play tomorrow night, and he is one of the key contributors. I mean, can you even put it into words, the journey that Jay-Sean has had from kind of coming from his upbringing quietly to what he overcame last year to where he is, where he truly is grateful for the news yesterday that he was recognized as an all-defensive guy in the league?
That's rightfully so, Gary, because he was so excited and had one of his best practices yesterday. And his journey is different, man. You're talking about a kid that grew up in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago. Family had to move to Minneapolis, and there's various issues. We won't get into all that, but he ended up in Madelia, Minnesota, right? And under recruited, nobody knew who he was. Luckily, Kyle Brown saw him play somewhere in an event, and when we got the job, he was one of the guys that we went after. But he came in as a big time scorer in high school, but he only scored around the rim, and he couldn't really shoot it. So he developed. We knew he had to develop as a shooter. We knew he had to develop his ball handling, and he did it. And the other thing that he's been able to do is the fact that he stayed with it, even though he had some games where he didn't get off the bench, Gary, and you know this. And games where we didn't play, he just wasn't ready to play, and he stayed with it. Then all of a sudden, last year, he's playing his best basketball, and he gets the blood clot in his arm. And he has complications from the blood clot, complications from the surgery. And I told this to the guys the other day. We were talking about everybody's journey, that how we've all have gotten to this place, and we all got different journeys, how we gotten here. And we talked about Jay Sean. And I got emotional, and I'm probably going to get emotional now because I sat in my car in Methodist Hospital in the garage for about 15 minutes, and I could not move. I could not leave. I couldn't push the button to start the car. I was an emotional wreck after I left the hospital and saw him, because I was afraid for his safety. I was afraid for his life. Take basketball out the picture. And I told him, I said, I don't care if you touch it, basketball ever again. We're going to make sure you get your degree at UNO, and we're going to help you do whatever you want to do. Don't you worry about basketball. You worry about getting healthy. And, you can see that was a really emotional time, but Gary, we had no idea if he was going to play again.
Yep.
Coach,
all the doctors said the same thing.
Coach, you get emotional talking about Jay Sean, and Gary brings up the fact that being around the team, they're like a family. I want to, and I think I don't know, I'm pretty sure you saw this, but I saw this when I went to the Denver game at Baxter Arena, where Josh Strite went up for a dunk, and then it turned into a layup, and he missed it, and it was a bad mistake. And then, and it was embarrassing, right? Everyone, he was wide open. He smokes it. He didn't know what to do. Guys go back down, defensive possession. You make a good stop. Then Denver ends up calling a timeout. But Josh puts his hands on his head, and he's obviously still upset from the massive mistake that he made previously. And Tony Osborne and the guy that we talked about, Jay Sean Glover, sprint out onto the court. And Jay Sean says, "You're good. You're okay. We're fine." And Tony literally lifts up his head. And goes, "Put your head up." That's a family, right? That's a family right there. How do you build that? How do you build as a coach that culture to really, because it's easier said than done to get these guys to play for each other. What do you think it is about this group that just they're willing to do whatever it takes to win these games?
Well, I think it's all individual personalities, man. How they all mesh together with their individual personalities, and some of it is their upbringing, and some of it is the way we deal with them on a day-to-day basis, with creating that family atmosphere, making sure everyone has value. We talk about roles, we talk about value, we talk about how you influence our team, even if you don't even play. And I think that's resonated with these guys because they all have value to what we're doing. Even our walk-ons, they all have value. Even the managers, they all have value to what we're doing. And we talk about it every day. Now, roles may be different, and your production and the results that you're getting may be different, but the value is the same. And we talk about it every day. We talk about family every day. We end every huddle with family. And I grew up in a big family. I got 6 sisters. So that's all I know is support one another, having each other's back, and that's all I know. So hopefully we kind of brought that to this program, and that's what our culture is.
Yeah.
If guys support each other and they continue to play hard for each other and they move the ball and you have any kind of talent, hopefully you can win some basketball games.
Yeah.
How do you win 3 basketball games? Well, I know there's got to win the first, but how do you get to the next step this upcoming weekend in Sioux Falls?
I think being locked in, being focused, definitely we got to defend and got to rebound. That's what we're hanging our hats on. We got to defend, we got to rebound in Sioux Falls, and everything else will fall in line if we move the ball and share the ball. And as long as we're connected and stay connected, I like our chances. And I know our guys are fired up. We kind of refocused them yesterday, and we had a good practice, and we're getting ready to go on the floor here in about an hour and a half. And I have no doubt we'll have another good practice and get on the bus and head to Sioux Falls and try to make history.
You and I both know, Coach, that this is more than just a trash banging, team. It's more than just a post-game celebration. That this team has legitimate talent. It's constructed really well with good spacing, physicality in the paint, and the chemistry is obviously there. I mean, the team really meshes well together. When did you know, or was there a moment or a day or a game where you're like, man, I think we got something special. I think we have the ingredients to go on a run and make it to the NCAA tournament?
Well, I felt it early in the year in fall camp.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we got off to a bad non-conference start, but I did feel like we had a good basketball team. But and I never relinquished that feeling. And I think when we left Fargo, after the way we won that game in Fargo, this when I knew, I was like, if these guys can do stuff like this and play with that kind of confidence, then we're going to have a chance to win our league. And it was that moment right there, getting on the bus, talking to the staff after we had came back to beat North Dakota State on the road. I thought we had a chance to win the league.
And won the league going away on Saturday against Oral Roberts. Could face ORU again tomorrow night or Kansas City, 2 teams that Omaha has beaten at the end of the regular season by double figures. Omaha finished 13-3, 19-12 as the number 1 seed. That's never happened in Omaha basketball, from 24 wins in the first 2 years to 19 this year. We'll get you out of here on this, Crutch. You've been a lot of different places. You've been in high-level programs and major universities that have great academic backgrounds. Oklahoma, Oregon, Arkansas. Have you ever been around a chancellor like Chancellor Lee?
No doubt about it. Never.
Now,
I mean, it's unbelievable. Her energy, her ability to connect with each sports team in her own little way. I mean, it's unbelievable. And she's totally vested in it. She's vested in it. She's just not doing a photo op. She's involved. We talk on a weekly basis. I mean, it's unbelievable how involved she is, and she understands how important sports in a place like this could really, really uplift your university.
Did in your wildest dreams, did you ever think she would pop out of the trash can?
I did not think she would do it, but I'm so glad she did it. And I'm glad she did it, because I think that was a really fitting ending to that day.
Yeah, it was a special day on Saturday. We hope for more special ones this week up in South Dakota. As always, congratulations. It is well deserved, all of the recognition that your program has gotten, and especially you. And you know that you have a really, really good staff, that everybody is aligned and works well together. And 3 more, my friend, 3 more in Sioux Falls.
Exactly right. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Coach Crutchfield. You have a good one.
That's the head coach, Chris Crutchfield,
Awesome.
Summit League Coach of the Year, Markel Sutton, the Player of the Year, Markel, and J.J. White, who has been a big part of this turnaround. All 3-year guys out of junior college, both first team, and then Jay-Sean Glover, all defensive team. Now, we thought, I mean, Jay-Sean, not only just the basketball, we didn't know if Jay-Sean would be here with us. And it's a hell of a story, and he's a very excitable. There was a game a couple weeks ago, South Dakota. The game's in hand, but not in hand. They're up 8. Lance Waddles is shooting free throws. Jay-Sean is on the free throw line and turns to the crowd to have him pump up the crowd while Lance is getting ready to shoot a free throw. I mean, he's got an abundance of energy. He's got a lot of confidence, and he's played really well. But it's a great story, because last year he came to Sioux Falls and he won They told him not to come up because he kind of checked himself out of the hospital to come up there. And he must have dropped like 30 pounds. He was almost unrecognizable. So for his comeback, it's kind of mirrors this whole team of dealing with adversity, perseverance, and fighting through, being good at what you do, and then finally being able to show it. So it's been I've had a front row seat. It's been a lot of fun. I know that, if you don't make the tournament, what does this mean? It's been a great year. It's been a great thing for Omaha men's basketball, for them to contribute to all the other success in the athletic department. We'll see what happens. I hope there's a lot of people up there over the weekend in Sioux Falls, and Omaha can make it to the weekend.
I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the journey that this team has been on, and it's Summit League playoffs going to be on the Summit League Plus on the McMaster household this weekend, man. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
You can always listen to it on the radio, which is much better.
Or drive up. It's going to be 50 degrees this weekend.
It's a quick drive. You get once you hit the South Dakota border, you can drive 80.
Am I going to be able to listen to your voice on the TV? I really hope I am. No. Oh my God.
No, it'll be the guys from Midco who do a really good job.
I'll just sync it up.
Semifinals and finals are on CBS Sports Network.
Ooh, will DePaul be there?
I imagine Sean Morris will be.
That'll be awesome.
The analyst for those 3 games. All right, tomorrow night, 5:30 over on 1290. I'll join you from Sioux Falls ahead of Omaha and either Oral Roberts or Kansas City. They play tonight, and then Omaha gets them. First time ever they've been the number 1 seed. It has happened more frequently that the regular season winner has also won the postseason.
Hey, don't touch the money.
But
don't touch the money.
If St. Thomas wins the conference tournament, Omaha goes to the NCAA tournament as the regular season champion.
So you have 2 teams to root for. Just covering your bases. Just covering your bases.
I'll talk for Gary. They want another banner. They want another ring.
Whatever gets Omaha in the tournament.
They want another little nylon coming down for the net. All right? We're not rooting for St. Thomas.
I want you to go to the tournament. That's all I care about.
I'll talk for my partner. We ain't rooting for St. Thomas.
Whatever you want. You
Go
want
Mavs,
the play-in
baby.
game? Yes.
No,
you want
Matt McMaster.
Whatever you... Nice.
Matt McMaster.
We'll catch up on some tweets and some emails.
And some breaking news.
Breaking news? No, just get to it now.
Yeah.
Joe Tooney, Chicago Bear.
Oh, I thought he was going to say I-80 open now between Omaha and Lincoln.
We had to open some cash. You'll like him.
I love him. I'll buy a jersey. I'm going to wear a Tooney jersey.
That's fine. He won't win as many Super Bowl rings as he won in Kansas City. He'll
win more. Caleb's coming.
He's about
4 less.
He's got, one more year left?
Caleb's coming.
Now, you know what? Jordan Love throwing passes to Devontae Adams
I don't want
in Green Bay.
No, I don't want to hear it.
Minnesota? I don't know. Maybe Ben Johnson should have stayed in Detroit.
I'm not hearing you. I'm not listening.
It's Gary, Matt, and Jimmy on 1620.
There, I'll nod my head with you.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
A little beat.
Yeah.
You know, a little different than the like 70s and 80s music that we just jam into. Like this is a little like you're back at the junction on O Street in Lincoln.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that we could take you there.
Yeah,
Actually,
Junction's
you
a newer
can
place.
take us there.
Junction wasn't around back in your guys' day. Junction's a spot now.
Would we like it? Would he like it?
Now?
Yeah.
Would you like Junction now? No, it's a
Where's the
complete-
junction?
The Junction is right next to Iguanas. Like literally.
I
it's
give
owned by the
Gary a
same
little more
guy.
credit. Gary's more
It's-
likely to like
it
it
is-
I
than
liked
me.
iguanas.
So Iggy's is like, you know, your kind of wooden drink bar, like nice little chill out. A lot of people go there. Every time you walk in, you see someone that you know. Junction is right next to it. It's like the dance bar. It's like a full on DJ dance, like, hey, we're clubbing type.
Oh yeah,
vibe,
I'd pull a muscle.
you know.
Yeah,
They're right next to each other. It's good. Like when Junction's popping, it's popping.
Here's my deal with Lincoln and O Street bars. Me and a group of fellas who are all around the same age that went to Nebraska. We go to the bars. We
The
have a
crew.
bar crawl the first weekend after school's been out and the last weekend before kids start
That's
moving
awesome.
That's genius. You need
Yep.
to do that with your
I
friends,
would
Matt.
love to
That's
do
a
that.
great one.
Now, I'm gonna guess you're a Duffy's guy. You like Duffy's? No?
in. Sandy's.
I love Sandy's. Sandy's is great. Sandy's karaoke every Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm not interested in doing karaoke. I'm just interested in drinking.
That's what I always used to say.
I was interested in karaoke. There was a lot of future broadcasters who are currently doing professional sports jobs who are out doing karaoke at Sandy's at 1 a.m. on Wednesdays, missing their Coach AMC 8 o'clock classes. It's a lot of
Wait,
there's a
you
lot
didn't
of,
make your class. Oh,
there's a lot of
come on.
there's actually multiple professional broadcasters and college broadcasters who was if you came to a Sandy's on Wednesday from the years of 2023 to 2024, you
Well,
can
we're-
hear him singing a variety of music.
Blake writes into the Equitable Bank inbox. When it comes to bubble teams, I think a big deciding factor should be your non-conference strength of schedule. Also, this year's bubble is why we shouldn't expand the NCAA tournament. Thank you, Blake. We don't need more mediocre teams
we
in the
don't.
tournament. So there's going to be a majority of the brackets we'll have after last night's result. Nebraska is the last 4 out. It was a good night for a majority of the bubble teams. So now you're going to have to do some rooting. And Nebraska's going to – I think Nebraska's got to win 3 in a row. I think they definitely have to win against Iowa because weird things could happen where they don't make the conference tournament.
Yes.
I mean, it's a little bit farther out, but they got to take care of business against Iowa, and they probably got to go to Indy, and they got to win. Let's say they're in the 12-13 game.
They're going to be on Peacock, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Hey, it's good quality.
What I was going to
you're
say,
bad. You get on the Peacock.
I kind of want them to be on Peacock because I
Clear
actually,
picture?
minus Bardo, I enjoyed the broadcast yesterday. And I'm not,
no, you did not enjoy the broadcast.
Or-
You enjoyed the look.
I enjoyed the look.
The look is
The look
look's
and
a
the
banger.
sounds. The looks
Yeah.
and the sounds are
No,
great.
the sound is off.
I'm fine with the sound.
No, I
You're-
think the sound
you're-
is delayed.
Okay.
It's been that way.
It seemed
all
weird
season
last
long.
night.
It doesn't seem that way with football. For basketball, it seems like the sound is delayed.
Now, are you talking the sound of the crowd or the broadcast?
The sound of the crowd.
See,
Like it's not. It seems
that
like a
doesn't
weird
bother me.
mix.
It doesn't bother me. It does.
makes me
I'm
feel
really
better.
not like I'm not on pins and needles in terms of like, oh, did the oohs and the ahs?
Well, I'm
make
not
sense
saying
with the
that I
basket?
just turned it off. I'm telling
Sure.
you that's just my preference. The picture looks great,
It's incredible.
but you like the picture.
I love.
You
the
didn't like.
picture.
Oh man, Burmeister and Bardo.
No,
I'd
not
take them
yes.
over
I like-
Kugler and Baugh.
No, I would. You know who I would take. I mean, it's Kugler and Baugh or Kugler and Hummel or Benetti and Hummel
Or
too.
Vince Scully and Joe
But-
Gaggiola.
or that. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Cool.
Ready for
Absolutely.
baseball.
No, totally
You
agree.
familiar with those?
Yes, I know. Vince Scully is- All right, stop trying to get me
Well
in trouble.
done, Matt.
Stop trying to get me in trouble. Anyway, I'm fine with them being on Peacock. It's a joke that they have to. This is an even conversation about them maybe not making the Big Ten tournament. But at this point, you have to win against Iowa. I think everyone's saying 2. 2 was when 2's the conversation of like if you split, these games that you were going into, right? They've now
Yeah.
lost all these
They
games.
can't
so
lose
for
anymore.
me, it's 3, right? Like 2 is it. And by the way, there will be some bid stealers. Like there's going to be at least 2 bid stealers. So like you're probably going to have to win 3 to lock in. So you got to win 4 in a row, which I don't think they're going to do.
Whoa, 4 in a row. I
Is
think a 3 in a row could get you.
No,
If you
4 in
win-
a row. I think it's 4 in a
If you
row.
won 2 in Indianapolis,
I don't think. I think
They
they're
play
past.
Wisconsin the
I
second
think
game?
they're past 2 in Indianapolis. I think it's now 3 in Indianapolis because they lost the tiebreaker to Ohio State. That's the one thing. If Ohio State was already in the tournament, or if Ohio State was firmly out of the tournament, maybe it'd be a different conversation. But the fact that Ohio State now has just firmly beat you and should jump you, that's why I think that's where that third tournament game, that comes in a lot. I'm talking about lock you in. If they get 4 in a row, that third tournament game, they are in. I don't know if they're in with 2 conference tournament wins. I think it gets sketchy. I think you're on pins and needles. I think you're rooting for different teams in the American and the AAC and the Sun Belt and the MOVO. Like if it's just 2 Big Ten tournament games, then you start watching other tournaments. If they win 3, they should be fine. But they're not going to. I hope I'm wrong, but they're not going to.
So what are they, 13th right now?
Damn.
Yeah.
So
they best win
as
Sunday.
It looks, Rutgers got kicked last night.
They got squashed.
Rutgers just plays like, just pick up basketball every night. And Ace Bailey does something incredible, and you go, damn. His drive under the baseline, the reverse jam, I think he might have a good career in the NBA. I think he might be able to make it in the NBA. He's got a little athleticism, a little ups, they call it.
But he looked good in silver and black.
Hey, Purdue looked good shooting 3. Holy crap. That's one of the best shooting performances of the year.
Rutgers are the Los Angeles Angels of the Big Ten. They have had both of them, but 2 incredible individuals, and the team just cannot rally around them and do anything to help them win and
so let's
have great seasons.
Let's do the scenario here. So, there's a lot on the line. Like Iowa plays Michigan State Thursday night. That could change some things.
That could change a lot of things.
So let's say Rutgers and Nebraska. Nebraska's in the 12-13 game. They would play Purdue.
It's Purdue now. Okay.
Well, you know where you'd like to fall is the 14th. Because then you play Minnesota probably, because I think Minnesota's got a huge game tonight. The 11-14 would be probably UCLA. I think you'd rather play UCLA in Indianapolis than you'd rather play Purdue.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. You'd much rather. The matchup of Purdue versus Nebraska and UCLA versus Nebraska is completely different. I don't know if the way that Purdue plays basketball with, Braden Smith and, they're just multiplicities on offense. And like they literally just death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, they run, they slice, they dice you, they run a bunch of actions where they just stress out the perimeter defense. And we saw that at Mackey. And I think if, with Purdue, it always really comes down to, especially when they had Edey, was if they're not making threes, that's when you can beat them. You can only beat Purdue when they're not making their shots, right? And that's less so because they have a worse team this year than they did last year. I mean, they went to the national championship last year. But UCLA, I mean, they're athletic and they play some good basketball, but we've seen the bottom fall out of that team multiple times this season.
Braden Smith going to be the player of the year in the league?
I mean, maybe, but I don't love it just because it's like we kind of pegged that in January. Like that's kind of been a foregone conclusion. No, but I just don't like how
he was good in January.
No, I know. I'm just saying I would have liked for them there to be someone different than a Purdue guy. Like I would have liked it if Harper did it, or Bailey did it, or Martinelli did it, or Bryce Williams did it.
Do you know what his comp is this year of what Braden Smith has done?
What's his comp?
Jimmy? 1990.
Okay, I was there. Still pissed about Rod Strickland. Had the game won.
ACC basketball. So last night, Braden Smith had 23, 5, and 9.
90. Was it Duke?
No, but they were really good in basketball back then.
Georgia Tech.
Yes.
Georgia Tech, Kenny Anderson.
Hell
yes. Bobby Crimmins. Had Leslie Nielsen's hair.
So he needs 12 points, 15 assists, 14 rebounds, and 4 steals to become the second player ever with 500 points, 275 assists, 150 rebounds, and 75 steals in a season.
Final 14, too.
It's him. I mean, it's him. I mean, they're
good NBA career.
The problem is that a lot of the guys who have been playing like high-level basketball haven't been on the best teams. And you have some teams in the Big Ten that are a little bit too complimentary in terms of like there are a lot of really good players and not necessarily like superstars. Like Wolf and Golden are both very, very good. But, they kind of work together, right? You look at that Michigan State roster. Michigan State doesn't necessarily have a superstar, but they have 9 guys who play really good basketball. And Tom Izzo is one hell of a coach. I think one guy that you could maybe point out too is Derek Queen on Maryland. He'll probably come in second, or give Smith a run for his money, because Maryland has won enough and he's been the star of that squad. But the Big Ten there's a lot of interesting roster construction when you think about it in the Big Ten. With it's not necessarily, you don't have like that Cooper Flag or like that like mainstay superstar name, at least on their best teams. But you have a lot of teams that have good rosters and good coaches, and that's kind of what this league has been for a while. And that's why I think the Big Ten's going to have a good year in the tournament.
So looking another thing about Braden Smith. So he is the first player in NCAA history to have at least 1,250 points, 700 assists, and 500 rebounds. You guys know what year in school he is, right?
What is he's a junior?
He's a junior.
Yeah. He was a freshman not that long, like 2 years ago. And him and Lawyer were absolutely lighting the world on fire together their freshman year. I mean, they were incredible with Edey. He's only a junior. He doesn't look like a superstar, but he plays like a superstar. He does. I mean, the way he passes the ball and is just able to fit into these small little crevasses and get him into these frames and like get this like offense rolling the way that it does. Matt Painter, did you see that interview with Matt Painter had the other day? So he was in a press conference, and I don't know, the question wasn't at least heard on what I was watching, but a reporter asked him something about the game being played, and he started just dropping a bunch of basketball lingo when he exits out, when he comes this way, when he flashes towards the corner.
Trolling?
He was trolling. He was throwing. I'll show you the clip after. He was throwing all these big words at the reporter, knowing that there's no way in hell that they're going to be able to pick up. And like he went, no joke, for 2.5 minutes and was like talking about different personnel and being like, when they bring this guy in and they come in, they float it this way and they go back around.
Go triangle and two.
Just to be like, hey, idiot. There's levels to this, and you won't get it. All right? Don't ask me that.
Purdue has one game left that's in Champaign Friday night. So Braden Smith 1.
Be a good game.
John Tonje 2
John
in
Tonje,
Player of the Year.
I forgot about that. That's a bad miss by me.
Because Purdue is I think a half game ahead of Wisconsin, because Badgers and Minnesota play tonight. That's going to be a close race. But, man, what Braden Smith is doing, if you're mentioning Braden Smith and Kenny Anderson, which –
Kenny Anderson was good.
Hey, Kenny Anderson at Georgia Tech. Man, when Georgia Tech basketball was good and you had D. Scott.
Yeah.
Then they had, didn't John Sally play at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, earlier, yeah.
And then they had
a great names.
He was a wing player, long arms, shot blocker on one of their Final Four teams. He'll come to me.
Yeah, same.
John
was
Walker.
Not Luke Schenscher. That was a different Tech team.
It was not Bobby Cremins because he was coaching.
Vic Law?
No.
Okay. This was back then.
But that's a good that's a good recall on an obscure basketball name.
Thank you.
What's the first name that comes to your mind when you think Georgia Tech basketball? Go.
Bobby Cremins.
Probably Kenny Anderson.
I'm going to say during the COVID, Josh Pastner celebrating in Nebraska's locker room with a shield on his face. And then they stopped at You Stop.
I love how you set that up so you can say like a niche guy's name and a niche moment.
Oh, I figured that was coming. I
like how it's a nice little, we're gonna play a little game, and then I'm just gonna bring in like a very funny thing.
Remember, like he wore like a full face shield.
Yes.
Yeah, I tried doing a game like that.
And their thing was they stop at convenience stores to buy candy after a road win.
That's funny.
Mike Riley would say, "I want to go to In-N-Out." Josh Pastner said, "You know what? Let's go to You Stop."
I want Mike and Ike's.
Adam has a good one.
Ozempic NIL potential.
Go a step further. Kenny Anderson or at Georgia Tech, guard.
Dennis Scott.
Okay.
3D.
Okay, another one.
Another one?
Travis Best was another one.
Damn. War number 13, I believe.
I'm out. Not Georgia Tech.
Playground legend, New York City. Like Kenny Anderson.
Nate Robinson.
No.
You got me, and I'm going to be pissed. Damn it.
Oh, Marbury.
See you tomorrow.
But that, like Georgia Tech basketball, like in the 90s, like when the ACC was bumping, and the ACC, by the way, they need a lifeline.
Which, by the way,
they aren't even sending Shulman or Billis to the ACC tournament for the first time in years. They're doing the SEC tournament.
Oh,
that's
of course.
That's crazy. Hey, everyone's asking, why is the bubble so bad? Why is the bubble so bad? I go look at the ACC. The ACC's got nothing this year. That's why the bubble's bad. They always have teams. And this year, they suck. They're terrible. That's why your bubble's bad. No one in the ACC's worth a damn.
Yeah, what happened to Syracuse?
Minus Louisville,
Louisville
and Duke.
Yeah. Isn't Carmelo Anthony's son going to Syracuse next year?
I hope he coaches.
And then the Boozer boys are going to Duke next year. Jeez.
That'll make you feel old.
Jeez.
Like Carlos Boozer.
Yeah, it makes me feel old, too. I remember
Gets worse.
when the Bulls signed Carlos Boozer.
Wait till Casey.
It was the classic Jerry Reinsdorf move. It was, hey, we didn't get Wade or LeBron, but you know what? We got Carlos Boozer.
Got Luol Deng.
Hey, what a wild time to be in charge of the ACC. Mm-hmm. They just had the thing with Clemson and Florida State yesterday.
Yeah, where they gave up the bag and restructured.
2030 is a major year in college athletics. I mean,
that's the marker.
The earthquake is going to start to happen when we get closer to 2030 across college athletics. But they also did something that I think the Big 10 and the SEC will pick up is your revenue will be distributed by your TV ratings. If you bring something to the table, you're going to get rewarded. You're not just going to suck off the eat of the teams at the top like the SEC has been so famous for doing. I think that's fair. That's the Texas model when the Big 12 when Nebraska said, I'm out. Now roll it around.
Yes. I smell what you're cooking.
15 years later, I would imagine the Big 10 and the SEC are going to look at that in terms of distributing revenue. If you bring something, you're going to get rewarded. If you don't want to play the game and you're not bringing anything, you're not getting you're not getting the same amount that Ohio State's getting.
Totally agree. They secured their short term, but not their long term.
But you have that. Football, you really haven't. Clemson, you're hoping to God Miami is back and Florida State figures out. But your marquee sport, basketball, you had it known that you wanted to partner with the Big East. I mean, we're talking about the ACC.
It's bad how bad it is this year. They are basketball. That's the basketball conference.
Jarrett Jack, by the way, Benny the Bull on Twitter tweeted at me.
Nice.
Shame.
It's a tough world to live in when basketball is your main sport, when you also are a football conference. Like the Big East can thrive on being a basketball conference.
That's why North Carolina's ahead of the curve.
All right. John Walker from the World Herald. Thoughts on last night's game? I'm going to say he had his lead written, a bulk of the story written by halftime last night.
I think 7 minutes into the first half, he was done.
Plus, he may have some insight on a coach that may be making a move in the offseason.
And one hell of a comeback on a Twitter poll.
Oh, he did?
He won.
Ooh!
Waka!
All right, so we'll welcome in a 6
Matt
seed.
Called it.
Coming up next on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in on a Wednesday. Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. If you don't have to be out, don't be out. Let the plow drivers take care of the roads. As the blizzard of 2025 has come through, now it's gone. We welcome in John Walker of the Omaha World Herald, a 6 seed who has pulled an upset in the opening round of the best local radio guest bracket. Good morning and congratulations.
Congrats.
Hello, good morning. Yeah, I have a tweet that I've got to fire off once I hop off of here, because that is like one of the unlikeliest of comebacks in sports history, right? Like it has to be.
So were the Missouri State boys called? I mean, who brought in the cavalry? Who made the call? Who ordered the code red, Walker? Who did it?
Okay, so literally here's what happened. So I was at Walmart yesterday getting groceries before the blizzard,
Why?
capital T,
Brave.
capital B hit.
Which Walmart? Are you at the 72nd?
72nd and Dodge. Yeah, like 70 or 72nd.
Lord.
Yeah.
Hey, so we shop at the same place. All right. I feel blessed.
Okay, but hey, if you see me, I don't know, buy me something. So-
You know this. If you go there, you see a lot of things.
You sure
Jeez.
do. You sure do.
I'm a Target guy.
So I was there grocery shopping, and somebody sent it to me, and they were like, "Dude, you're down bad right now." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I am." And I was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna give it a little bit, see what happens." And then I put out that bat signal, and just kind of away it went, and kind of took on a life of its own. And then, funny enough, you mentioned Missouri, because this thing like extended all the way down to Oklahoma. From when I was down at Oklahoma State, a couple of my buddies were texting me yesterday, and they were like, "Dude, you're inching closer. You're inching closer." And I was like, "Oh my God!" So love Andy. It was a privilege and an honor to go up against an Omaha media titan in the first round
But you
of
beat
the
'em.
local bracket.
But you beat him.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm Florida Gulf Coast. Welcome to Lob City.
Whoa.
Wow.
I used to be the voice of FGCU. We called it Dunk City, but I think they should retire it.
Okay. Small world, huh? That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So in your small world, because I've been waiting to ask you this, because I think he's a great coach. I don't care if he's coaching CYO 6th grade or he's in Des Moines, Iowa, or maybe in Iowa City, Iowa next year.
Let's go.
But you had a front row seat because you were the sports editor at the paper in Maryville. John, what makes Ben McCollum so good? They're the D2 Drake Bulldogs. He took 4 guys from Northwest Missouri State, and they're 27, 28-3. They're in line for an at-large. His name's being mentioned. Grant McCausland speaks glowingly about him. He calls him. He wants tips on how Texas Tech can do this and that. He's a really well-respected in the industry. He's really, really good. How is he that good? What makes him so much different?
It's really nuts. One, I'll talk a little bit of X's and O's real quick. It's such an interesting system because they truly play positionless. Now, like he had a really good, really, really, really good point guard when he was at Northwest, and he has a really, really, really good point guard right now. But like anyone in that system can initiate the offense. And then they do not take bad shots. Like they're okay grinding every possession. If you're going to defend them for 30 seconds, they're not, they're going to run offense for 30 seconds. And it is the way that I used to describe it. It is conceptual. It is not like they don't run plays. They run concepts. If that makes any sense.
Wow.
And so that's it doesn't matter. They'll lull you to sleep. And then on the defensive end, they're going to be up in your grill for 40 minutes. That's you can count on it. But the crazy thing is he has a certain type of player that he loves to recruit. And those are the guys he goes after. For example, I asked him, one time it was the year after Ryan Hawkins left and came to Creighton, and Trevor Hudgens was their point guard, the point guard I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And he was dealing with a little bit of an injury, and it was like they were playing a team that they were beating handedly, and Trevor Hudgens dove on the floor for a loose ball. Everybody at the home game was like, "Oh my God, don't do that!" It's like obviously. And so I asked him in post game. I said, "Matt, how do you get players to dive on a loose ball like that?" And he said, "I recruit players who dive on loose balls." I said, "Okay." So like that's just like the nature of Ben McCollum. Like X's and O's, they speak for themselves. Like you said, I think Kelvin Sampson's asked him some things. Grant McCaslin has asked him stuff all the way since he was back at North Texas, and even now that he's at Texas Tech. So you know, everyone who's kind of been in the know with college basketball isn't surprised by what Ben McCollum's doing at Drake. But yeah, man, it's nuts. It's nuts. Mad scientist.
Do you think, because you know, you and I have had personal conversations about this and how great of a coach he is and the concepts and how they run the offense, but when you go from, you know, Northwest Missouri State to then Drake, and then potentially like he's a big name up for a couple pretty big jobs.
Mm-hmm.
He has the regiment to be a great coach at a higher level from the X's and O's standpoint. But what do you think from the pressure standpoint? What do you think from the character standpoint of, hey, the stakes are a little bit higher when you start working at places that are in the ACC and the Big Ten? Do you think he's a guy who's meant for that as well?
Yeah, I think like I don't think he cares in like the best way possible.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit like Joe Mazzulla in that regard. Like I don't know if you guys have seen the clip. I think it was from last season. They asked the Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla, like, "Oh, what about, you know, do you feel pressure to blah blah blah?" And he was like, "No, I don't feel pressure. Like, this is basketball, and one day we're all gonna be dead." Like he was like, "No, I don't feel pressure," and that's a little bit how Ben McCollum is. Not to say that he's not competitive or anything. He just like genuinely does not care about the outside perception, about the pressure from the outside, like whatsoever. And you know, when you have the track record that he does, like he's won at least a share, if not outright, a conference title for the past like 13 seasons between his time at Northwest and obviously his first year at Drake. So when you have that track record, you don't really have to care or worry about pressure.
Yeah.
There is some pressure that comes along when you're a freshman and you're in the starting lineup at Creighton. And as the season grinds and you're trying to climb over the wall, you might have bad days like Jackson McAndrew had on Saturday in Cincinnati, and you might be on a stretch where you're fighting it. Last night, John, he looked more comfortable. His feet got set, and he had 5 threes that he hit, but he looked like the swagger was back. Did you see something out of him last night that is like, okay, this wasn't just we're playing Seton Hall. This is the guy that we have seen glimpses of throughout the year. Not going to worry about him anymore going forward.
Yeah, I think so. He'll still have his moments because at the end of the day, he is a freshman. But that was really, really, really encouraging to see from Jackson McAndrew last night because I think he missed his first one, missed his first 2, I think. And with how he shot it lately, you're thinking, oh boy. And then he kind of caught fire, as did the Jays, but Jackson McAndrew especially. Yeah, I think he finished 5 of 8 from the field, all threes. That's matched his career high with threes. Had a career high 17 points. That last night was an I think that's kind of the big picture too. I think Jackson McAndrew is a microcosm of Creighton's win over Seton Hall. Because big picture was these Jays were stumbling, whether people care to admit that or not. Like, not saying they were in a bad place, they hadn't face planted, but they were stumbling. Like they had that season-saving 9-game win streak, and then they lost to UConn at home and lost to St. John's with first in the Big East up for grabs. And then they had 2 wins, but they were over Georgetown and DePaul. So it's like, okay, they have to beat someone to get back on track. Then they get routed at Xavier, and it was like, okay, they have to beat someone to get back on track. And Seton Hall is obviously not that someone, but for them to just bounce back the way that they did after that Xavier loss was really encouraging. And obviously, Jackson McAndrew was a really large part in that with a career night.
Do you think it's hard to sometimes build momentum in the Big East because some of the teams that you play in conference are just really, really bad, and it's hard to like really feel great after a big win because that's what you're supposed to do?
Yeah, probably. And I think that's partly why Greg McDermott hammers the, anytime we win, we're happy. Which, you in any case, period, ever, you do not apologize for winning in college basketball. But he's a smart guy. I think he said on the post-game radio show after the Xavier game, like, you're supposed to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Talking about Seton Hall. But it's just super hard to go into the Prudential Center, a ghost town, and manufacture your own momentum over the course of a game. They did that. But then, exactly like you just said, like, you're supposed to fly back to Omaha and be absolutely elated that you beat Seton Hall, a team that only has 2 conference wins all season. Like, you feel really good about the things you did in that game, but at the end of the day, everyone knew that you were supposed to clobber Seton Hall. So maybe it's just, reaffirmation. But it's for sure tough to find momentum in the Big East just because of how topsy-turvy the league has been this year.
Would you make the argument then that the Big East tournament is going to be very important for this team? Because if they are able, I mean, you're going to play Marquette, you're going to play St. John's, or you might play UConn. Would you argue that because you get to play those top teams, it's going to be so important to do well to build that momentum heading into the tournament, just because you don't get a lot of those opportunities toward the back half of this season?
Yeah, I would think so. Like, I don't think now don't get me wrong, the Chai will be rocking Saturday because it's senior day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I know students are on spring break, right?
They are. Yeah.
So that'll affect it a little bit, but that place will be rocking for the last home game for Jemiah and Ryan and Steven and Sammy Osmani. Like, that place will be rocking. Yeah. But a win over Butler is not a needle mover at this point. Whether that's for your resume or for your confidence. I think so. I think the Big East tournament is going to be big because they're more than likely going to go to New York as the 2 seed. They did that last year and they got beat the first round. Like, Providence just put their hands on them and sent the Jays home. At that point, it was like, okay, Creighton's still going to be a 3 seed in March Madness, and like, they're going to get a good draw, and they still have Baylor and Trey and Ryan, so like, they're going to be fine. They're okay. But this year's a little bit different because they're sitting on that 8-9 seed line, and you really need a win over. You probably need to make it to the championship game, I would imagine, to get to a 7 and avoid the 1 seed in a second round matchup.
Yeah.
And then in the process, obviously that would mean you'd beat either a Marquette, a UConn, a whatever.
Sure.
So and that'd be good momentum heading into that time of year. But I don't think last night was a huge momentum thing. I don't think Saturday will be a huge momentum thing. But next week's Big East tournament sure could be, with March Madness right around the corner.
Hey, we'll get chatter on this. John Walker of the World Herald joining us. Of course, the Creighton beat writer. Great stuff. Hoophead as well. I'm not going to play the role of Sam McEwen, the boss of the sports page, but Ryan Kalkbrenner is going to play his final game in a building which he's played a lot of games. It'll be his 164th career game in a J uniform. By the way, he began his career at Creighton and was not wearing number 11. That's a little trivia for you. And then you will probably write about it, and you've written a lot about him and gotten to know him and his story and his growth from St. Louis to being a married guy playing this year where he could win Defensive Player of the Year again. He could win Player of the Year. Is there anything left that has not been talked about with Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's going to probably leave the program, John, as the second best player behind Doug?
No, I mean, the only thing I wrote a pretty lengthy story on him last year, and at that point, obviously, he wasn't sure if he was going to come back this year yet, and I kind of said the same thing. I was like, what else do you want to do? Like, at that point, I was like, you're going to win a third straight DPOY. You're going to be right behind Ewing. And I was like, what else do you want to do?
Yeah.
And he was like, I simply just want to win. Like, that is why I'm here. I want to win. He was like, I want to win a Big East tournament title because I've never done that. I want to go to a Final Four. I said, okay. And so I'd imagine that hasn't changed this year. The funny thing, guys, I'm going to tease a little bit for this weekend. Excuse me. I think Tom Chattel is going to have, I won't tip his hand too much, but I think Tom Chattel is going to have something either on Friday or on Saturday about Ryan. And a lot of people are going to go, whoa, John, you didn't write about Ryan? I will have something on Ryan Kalkbrenner, excuse me, either Sunday or Monday. I'm not sure which day it's coming out yet. But we, you, me, everyone, we have talked extensively about Ryan Kalkbrenner and what he's done and what he could still do and what left he has to do. But nobody wants to not talk about themselves more than Ryan Kalkbrenner. He does not want that spotlight. And knowing that, I asked everyone who's watched his journey to talk about him instead. And so that will be out this weekend.
Oh, that is fantastic. John, as always, we appreciate it. It's this time of the year. We talk to you next week. I believe you will be in New York City for the Big East tournament.
I'll be in New York City.
Go get some pizza.
Hey, that's awesome. John, as always, we appreciate it. Have a great week. Looking forward to you and Tom fronting and playing behind Ryan Kalkbrenner on this weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, my friend. That is John Walker from the World Herald, who came from behind. See, it's very awkward right now with this because yesterday we were praising AK as a 3 seed.
Are you saying shenanigans?
Now we got John in as a 6 seed. Some things, crazy things you got to have. He came from way behind.
He was down 80-20.
No.
But once again, he called in the cavalry, and the cavalry will be there. And so and I knew this, by the way, when I predicted John Walker to make the Final Four.
Inside info.
I had inside info that he had an army, okay? And he has an army. So he's dangerous. He's a dangerous man. He's a dangerous man, that Walker.
Kind of guy who would go in
Walker,
and win
Texas
Game
Ranger
7 on the road.
Hey, there's the little trivia question about Kalkbrenner that
I didn't know that.
Hey, John is right. He didn't like talking about himself. But I always laugh when I see his television commercials because Kalkbrenner has been featured, well, in this market, he's featured more than any, like a Nebraska football player. He's got a couple of commercials that are out there.
He seems like the awkward, lovable, funny guy, Like I don't know him personally, but like with how he's presented with everything like that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. He seems like that. And that's a guy that everybody can love, like he's, I'm sure that people have great Ryan Kalkbrenner one-liner stories. He just looks like a guy who can drop a great one-liner.
Be a guest co-host on The Zone. He's got the pipes.
This'll, you as the resident J-Sker on the show.
I'm not a J-Sker.
I mean, I'm not.
Do we have anything to give away? I think this is a great trivia question.
To Matt?
No.
Oh.
I'm not getting this right.
Do we have anything to give away?
We have nothing?
Oh, I want to. Maybe we have a stress ball or something.
Do you want to hold on to it?
So, Doug was 3 throughout here, and 11's going to be in the rafters, but that was not his first number when he played. It's his freshman year, which was the COVID year.
I think I saw this on his stat page on Basketball Reference. I think there's a 4 in there. Is it 24 or 4?
32.
32. So
he wore 32 as a freshman and then switched to I think 11 is ideal number for a big man.
Okay.
Like 32 is like, you're
32, you're playing the 3
You're
or
a little
2.
bit larger, so we give you a higher number. I think 11 for a big man, just stick and stick
for a
is
finesse
a good
for a
looking number.
For a skilled big man, 11 is good. If
biased,
I'm
but
a
that would be
rough and
50 to
tough
me.
big man, I think I'm like 17, 18, or maybe in the 30s, 35, 37, right? If I'm like, I'm going to hammer you.
Mhm.
I'm going to absolutely kill you.
So you're Tree
But, like,
Rollins.
Dwight Howard in his prime, he was 12. You know, that made sense because in his prime, but when he was in the Lakers, I don't think he was 12. I think he was a different number because he was hammering boys.
You know what has been one of the treats this year is, now guys can wear whatever number they want. And
I don't like that.
is seeing officials like when there's a foul on number 7 or number 9, try and come to the scores table. We were in a tournament in Akron back in November. He didn't play against us, but a guy was wearing 99. I was playing. And I'm like, really?
That's obnoxious.
Come on, man. Well, I used to think
Lucas
so.
77.
So there's a guy, and this is before your time. This is even before you were born. There was a guy at Nebraska, DePriest Owens, wore 00. I always thought that was the cockiest thing.
It's Robert
Like
Parrish.
these guys that would come into a program and they'd say, I'm wearing 0 or 00. I'm like, you are super cocky. And then, like guy, JT Gibson wore 0 at Omaha. I'm like, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But DePriest Owens wore 00. I'm like, what the hell? You don't see 0 as much anymore now that you can wear 9, you can wear 7,
Sure.
you could wear 27.
You wear 4.
But watching
3.
officials come to the scores table to try and signal that the foul is on like 9 or 7.
Is that 52 or 7? I don't know, Terry. Is there a 52? There's no 52 on the roster. Is there? Wait, there's
No.
a 45? No, it's 9. It's 9.
Now, war number 32 in the COVID year.
Didn't last year?
Do you
Was
think
it?
that on the backside of the banner they'll have to put 32 up there?
Absolutely not. It'll be 11. Jimbo.
Small numbers.
Wasn't there a team last year in the NBA that had a 0 and 00 on it?
Oh, hell, I don't
Wasn't
remember.
there a?
I don't think you can do that.
I think the
Yeah.
I'm almost positive that the Trailblazers or the Nuggets had one player wear 0 and the other player had 00.
I mean, the Blazers once had the late great.
If you're in
Kevin
the chat,
Duckworth
I know the
as
YouTube chat
00.
is smart. If the YouTube chat can let me know, I'm almost 100% positive that there was a 0. It might have been Russell Westbrook and another guy.
Did
At
we
0
even
and
have
00.
dinner
Hey.
last night?
Hey, people like Steph Curry ruined AAU basketball. I'll tell you another thing that ruined AAU basketball is guys like Luka wearing 77.
Yes.
I mean, hey, kids,
Don't get a
AAU
number.
kids, just get out there and wear normal numbers.
Yeah.
We don't even wear number 77. You don't play like Luka. You might look like Luka, but you don't play like Luka. Don't wear 77. Thank you. That was a get off my lawn moment.
I played 5 years of AAU basketball. I was 25 the entire time. Hey,
From
2-5 on the foul.
I was the fat kid in all the sports, so I always got a high number.
45.
They were not. Hey, you look like a number 2.
Were you a 54?
I was as a all Central Iowa Metro League conference
Gotta
pulling
throw that in
guard.
there. Got to throw that in
I
there.
wore 73.
Okay.
Mhm.
I got a lot of flack.
Joe
for wearing-
Klecko?
I wore 62.
Different
I
line.
wore 62 in hockey. I got a lot of flack for it. People are like,
Yeah,
"What are
you should.
Offensive lineman. And I
Yeah.
go, my dad was born in 1962. That's why I
These
wear it.
kids that are out skating around that are wearing 97. No, there's just one guy, Connor McJesus.
No, you should wear 60s is a good. I like a 60s hockey number. I think it says you mean
Hey,
business. Your
That's
Marchands.
why baseball.
Shaws.
No, that's why baseball does the numbers right. You know what? If you have a high number, it's more than likely you're a invite to spring training. Okay, and you're not going to make the roster.
Or a relief
Okay,
pitcher.
you're out there pitching. In the 6th inning of a Thursday game against the Padres, and you're wearing 74. Good luck. We'll see you in Knoxville.
Isn't it a great sociology conversation that like numbers mean like your standings within sports? Like if you go to training camp in NHL and they give you 47, you're like, I'm cut. I'm done. I ain't making it.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to reveal the name. Nebraska football about 7-8 years ago had a player that would only commit to them if he got a certain number.
I believe this.
And there was a player on the roster at the time that was, he was a regular, he was a starter that was wearing that number that still had eligibility left.
What do you do? What do you do? What
He ended up coming to Nebraska. Now, he didn't last very long, but they resolved
That's
it.
a
But that
tough
was one on his recruiting
That's
visit.
a tough one.
Guy from the Mike Riley staff was telling me the story on his recruiting visit. Because they give him their jersey.
Yeah.
You like to take pictures in. Like dad and the son were like, "That's our number. It's always been our number."
Yeah.
And they're like, we got a guy that starts and is pretty good, is wearing the same number, and he ain't going nowhere.
You know what I would do? I would stand my ground. I would tell those guys to kick rocks. You
Hey,
earn your number.
But nowadays in college in the NIL, Dylan or Dayton wants a specific number,
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
and all of a sudden,
You're going to Scott versus Miller North.
Nice.
Is that not where you're going?
Bo Davis. Bo Davis is wearing a different number. 15 has been secured. Brandon Vogel from Counter Reed still to come. 1620 The Zone. People are asking who that player was. He didn't last very long. It's Jordan Stevenson, who was attached to number 2. Couldn't get into Wisconsin. Nebraska picked him up. I remember Mike Riley and Dave, who was his right-hand man at the time. They were at the Big Ten Media Days when they got word that Jordan Stevenson, because he was a 4-star recruit, he had signed a letter of intent to play Wisconsin, but then they denied him admission. And then Alabama and Miami were courting him, and Nebraska got him. And they couldn't say exactly who it was, but they were dropping hints in Chicago at Media Day about Jordan Stevenson is coming to Nebraska. And then, ironically, he quit.
I don't even like that number for a running back. Number two.
Mhm.
I don't think that's a good running back number. Is that a bad take?
He wasn't. He was never in shape here. I don't know what happened to him post Nebraska.
I like 20 numbers for running backs. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm impartial to like, the Matt Fortes and whatnot, but I
Or
like
the NFL used to have parameters on what numbers positions wore.
I loved that. I was a fan of that. I thought it was cool. I thought that if you were like 50, you were a linebacker, and if you were in, if you were high up in the 80s or 90s, you were an edge rusher, and if you 10 to whatever, you were a quarterback. Like, I thought that was like a niche little
community type deal that was unique.
That's the problem. We of sports nowadays. There are things that used to be unique that we have now eliminated to make everybody happy. Like, we're just so worried about nobody's feelings getting hurt and whatnot that we've taken uniqueness out of sports, and we've also let money allow that to do that too.
I've gone down the rabbit hole of Jordan Stevenson.
Was that a sentence you thought you'd say this morning when you woke up?
Dude, he was brought. So his I don't know if he ever carried the football here because he was.
He doesn't have one stat. He doesn't have one
stat.
stat.
He was back for kickoff return, and yeah. So
I just think that's such a POC move.
This is the story.
Person of color?
The recruiting win for first-year Nebraska head coach Mike Riley over Big Ten foe Wisconsin could speak volumes about the direction of the two programs going forward. The Badgers, like Nebraska, are breaking in a new head coach, Paul Chris. Chris was able to keep Stevenson in the recruiting class, but lost him last week due to Wisconsin's academic standards.
I got a question for you. Should we send that to freezing cold takes? Should we send that? Oh, they're going in different directions. Riley and Huskers on the way up. Chris and Badgers on the way down.
Matt, Mike Riley was like a kid in a candy store at Big Ten Media Days when, like, we got him. We got this guy. You got to believe it. We beat Wisconsin. Like, this guy is going to be, he showed up. He's fat. Like, he wasn't in shape at all.
How can he be 5'9" and be fat? That's another thing.
He had a boiler.
Really?
And not as in Boiler Brewing.
They put him back to return a kickoff, and you're like, hey, maybe mix in a trip to the weight room. Okay, maybe stay away from, Pizza Ranch or any buffet out there. He was, I don't know if he was ever in shape.
He was listed as 5'9", 205. That's a beer belly. That's a beer weight. That's dad at a barbecue weight.
That sounds like friends of mine.
5'9", 205? What? You got to be 5'9", 170, 5'9", 185. You can't be 5'9", 205.
Well, he got his number 2.
I mean, they got it done.
Okay, so he went to Navarro College.
Yeah, I can't. He doesn't even have a football reference page. If you just look up Jordan Stevenson stats, it's just the 1 year at Nebraska.
That is not Jordan Stevenson on Twitter because he's tweeting about Baylor Shireman.
Big fan.
Iowa JD, who's trying to be number 1 seed in the Texters, says he went to a junior college. Then he joined the workforce. He said, is that number 1 seed material?
So he was on his 24/7 page. He was listed as 5'8", 185. So I don't know. Maybe he had too many Valentino's buffet pizza slices on his way from Texas all the way up to Lincoln.
They had the buffet then?
Back then, in 2015, you think they did? You think they had it there? Or are we teetering on the line?
You're teetering on the line. I had a buffet in Lincoln at Valentino's in 2013, but it was like one of the last.
We gotta ask Sarah Baker Hansen that question. Hey, Sarah, when do you think buffets started getting out
2020
in society?
She would not be the one to ask. She's not a buffet person.
Yeah.
Quality. Eight kickoff returns for 85 yards is his career at Nebraska. Well,
but you got to wear number 2.
Well, there was also a headbutting because they were going to. He was going to redshirt, but Nebraska needed somebody.
Oh,
and they kind of went back and forth.
So here's the thing too. I love it when you look up like these obscure people's stats, and then you start getting a bunch of other obscure humans who also happen to play sports, who also happen to be Jordan Stevenson. There's a Jordan Stevenson hockey player who played for the Weyburn Red Wings, and then made his way all the way to Grant McEwen College in the ACAC. Good for that, Jordan Stevenson.
Jordan Stevenson, Nebraska. At least he got his number 2. Will do. Brandon Vogel, who is what is he in this bracket?
He got robbed.
He
Is
got
what he got
robbed.
Yeah.
He's 5. And
I
he lost
voted
to
for
a
him.
4.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been a 5.
All right.
Brandon Vogel's way better.
We'll discuss. We'll let the feelings flow. Like most of the emotion in Nebraska's game last night against Ohio State have flowed this morning. He's coming up to wrap up the show after this. And we're back with our good friend, Brandon Vogel from Hail Varsity, or formerly of Hail Varsity, my bad. Counterread.com, much greater than Hail Varsity. Thank you. Good morning. We do have to tell you something. We're very upset about your outcome in the best local radio guest bracket.
It's a shame.
Yeah. I appreciate it. It's through no lack of effort on your guys' end, but I'm I'm kind of an exclusive voice between you guys and one other show, and I like that. I try to keep it select. So I'll chalk it up to that.
You're a money guest. You only do the money fights. You only do the money radio shows. You only do the money matches. You are comparative to Brock Lesnar or Floyd Mayweather. That is what you do. You come in only for the top dollar and the top shows, and you know what? You're treated like it, and you should be higher than a 5 seed. It was a damn shame. It was a damn shame that happened to you. It's a travesty.
Well, I appreciate the support. We'll go back to the lab and see if we can get him next year.
Hey, you heard 3. One is a familiar voice, but he hadn't been here for a while. But 2 other guys, they're about as far away from being on the Nebraska staff as you would ever imagine until Matt Rule made a call to Kansas City with some help from the Merritts and the Moseys, and then made a phone call to Orlando and had some help. And Addison Williams is kicking the tires like, who's this Matt Rule guy? What was your takeaway from the 3 guys that spoke yesterday about how they all ended up here? Because they're all kind of different type of guys. Terry Braden, he's Mr. Energy as well.
Yeah.
Addison Williams a little bit more, he's kind of a little bit quieter. But where's your main takeaways?
Well, they were, I think, as you kind of alluded to, they were all pretty different, and we knew the most of what we were getting with Eckler. The thing that jumped out to me is, he mentioned, and he didn't say the coach by name, but according to him, had a pretty high-profile opportunity a year ago, decided not to take that. So, all of his talk about being from Nebraska, his parents being in Fremont, et cetera, I think struck a true chord because he didn't have to come here. And in fact, just with where the program's at, he was in a better situation at Tennessee. So that's intriguing. Braden it comes across to me. Well, first of all, the first names, very respectful for a guy making his first appearance in front of the media to call everyone by name. But that was a telling detail too.
Yes.
And I think he's a pretty high upside coach. Been with a great organization in Kansas City, largely unproven at the college level. But I think he'll prove himself pretty quickly. And then Williams, as you mentioned, has been a D coordinator before. You got the sense he's been through some of these and pretty, I guess, laid back would be my first impression, which might not be the worst thing for that group. When you look at the number of secondary coaches Nebraska has had some big personalities and really good coaches back there, maybe this can be a little bit more of calm waters, I guess, with that group. Hopefully it's somebody who can be around for a while. But it is a departure, I think, from what they've had in the past.
So, Brandon, I feel like looking at this team, you kind of have 2 teams within one, right? You have the defense you're going to have a lot of work with Matt Rule and Phil Snow and John Butler. And then you have Dana, and Dana is basically the head coach of the offense, right? Now you look at a guy like Mike Eckler, who's coaching special teams and is going to be pulling players from both sides of the ball in order to, make it an effective unit. Would you say that his role and his energy is going to be pivotal in trying to kind of connect those 2 sides together from a continuity and chemistry standpoint?
Yeah, I think maybe more so from the bottom up. I mean, I think broadly, that's kind of the setup for Matt Rule, and I think it's a good one for him. It feels a lot like an NFL model. We know how his NFL tenure turned out, but I think it's where a lot of college football is headed. And an offensive coordinator and special teams, I think Nebraska has two of some of the best 20-25 guys in the country in those spots. Butler, we don't know him as much about. His college experience was pretty long ago, minus last season at Nebraska. But that's the side of the ball where, well, you've got Phil Snow, which is a really intriguing piece still, and it's kind of Matt Rule's calling card. So if they all kind of approach the high levels we've seen those 3 coaches be at for their individual units, like the upside is pretty intriguing, I think, with Nebraska entering 2025.
Hey, there's a credit to Go Big Redcast who put out this tweet, and it's about, we know that Addison Williams is the 4th defensive back coach at Nebraska in the last 4 years. They also included a little stat that is wild because under Coach Osborne, assistants didn't leave. George Darlington was here for, 17 years, from 86 to 02. Addison Williams is not only the fourth defensive back coach in Nebraska in 4 years, he is the 12th since 2002, which is wild. But could you make a case that the new guy who is a new face again there's kind of some older guys in that room, and then there's a bunch of younger guys, he has one of the most, maybe difficult is not the right word, tasks to figure out who the heck is going to play, because they don't know him, he doesn't know them, but there is a lot of them that are defensive backs.
There's a lot of them, and with the presumed roster cuts, like I think the pressure stepped up there too. Like Nebraska built this through the previous two recruiting classes. They loaded up back there, and in terms of landing those first two classes under Rule, Evan Cooper was heavily involved in those, and kind of talent identification was one of his specialties, according to Rule. Now you've got all those guys. You have a new coach coming in, and you've got to sort through them by the time you get to your opener. But also, you kind of got to sort through them before you get to April, because I think if there's uncertainty there, you risk losing some players to the portal that way. And they've done okay in the secondary in that regard, I guess, comparatively at least, because I think there is the promise of there's going to be playing time here for you guys. But it's a tough task, and when you look at all of the turnover at that position, like hope Addison Williams comes in and is at the level, like to lose 12 guys, when you look at guys like Charlton Moore and Corey Raymond, really, really good defensive backs, Terry Joseph. I mean, those guys are out there and doing it at a high level. It's kind of a remarkable group when you start to piece back through it. So if Williams comes close to that, and is here for a little bit, Nebraska would be in pretty good shape.
I want to ask you about the ACC, Brandon. They did something yesterday that was quite interesting with their revenue in terms of TV, right? They've decided that they're going to split up the pie. They're not going to do 100%. 40% of the TV revenue is going to go evenly amongst the teams. Other 60% are going to go based on what the markets are and what the interest is. The Big Ten has more teams than the ACC. The Big Ten also has more football schools than the ACC, who garner much more attention. Do you think that's something that the Big Ten could logistically move to, or do you think that the massive teams and the mass amount of teams who football is their top sport is just too much math to do in order for them to go to that model?
I mean, I think they could do it. I think it's a bad idea.
Okay.
We look at the Big Ten and the SEC as kind of the two conferences that call the shots. Both share their revenue equally, and nobody out there thinks that Vanderbilt offers as much value as Alabama. But I think what we've seen, and we kind of saw this with firsthand with Nebraska and the disintegration of the Big 12. Nebraska, was one of the first movers there, but it eventually cost the Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma too. The leagues that have agreed to do it that way, which again, like harkens back to the NFL, where teams don't have the same market value, but they split that revenue. I think that's a sign of health, and I think what we're seeing in college football plays that shores up that point of view or that argument, and the problems in the ACC sort of indicate that. Extended the conference's run for a bit, but how stable is it when teams are saying we'll take less because we know it's still more if we're just cast out into the wilderness like the Pac-12 schools were.
Hey, let me go back to defensive backs, because you mentioned something that has sparked Addison Williams yesterday. There's only two DBs you mentioned, Bly Hill and Donovan Jones. Now he just kind of got here, but we don't want to read too much into it. But could we read into, and we know the story with Bly Hill. I'm glad they got him back on the field last year after the injury, but he wasn't ready to play at the end of the year. But he at least got back on the field where mentally you'd be like, okay, the knee is fine. But do you think he brought up those two because of the position of how important cornerback is. Because look at last year when Hill and you didn't have Tommy Hill when he got injured. And then, of course, Bly Hill was not back to the level he was in the spring. Cornerback was a little bit with some guys that maybe shouldn't have been in that position. Do you think it was subtly that's a key place to watch Nebraska's secondary will be cornerbacks this spring?
I think so. I think those two names that he mentioned were interesting. He talked a little bit about length. It stood out to me. He mentioned, being able to play man, which Nebraska really struggled with last year. And yes, Tommy Hill was injured. He was supposed to be the guy that was playing himself up draft boards. And CAR Wright came in and exceeded all expectations. But if you don't have that from him, and you've kind of got a revolving door at the other spot, you kind of look at the corner play for Nebraska last year and be like, well, that was certainly substandard. And I think to win in the Big Ten, particularly in an 18-team league that's as top heavy as it is, you're just you have to be good there. And Nebraska wasn't. So, and it's probably going to be, Sierra Wright's kind of the one guy you can pencil in unless you want to move over, a nickel or safety as they had to do last year. And I don't think that's their top option.
Terry Braden is a ball of energy. He was absolutely incredible up at the podium, but we're talking about a guy who does have a difficult job ahead of him. Nebraska has lost a ton at that defensive line position. He's got a lot of young guys who he's got to develop and he's got to get ready, and whether they be from coming into the program or transfers or whatnot. Do you think that his we look at these past guys, right, who've come in Rule Staff 1.0, and we say, they never had a room. They don't have enough experience to do it. It's a big undertaking. But do you think his 8 years at a program or at a place like Kansas City kind of nullifies that maybe lack of experience of having a true room like that?
Yeah, I think it could. I think coming from the NFL where rooms are by necessity smaller might help him a little bit because he's got some sorting to do up front. It was interesting. He mentioned Elijah Judy as maybe the first name he mentioned, I think, if not the only one, which is a guy who doesn't get mentioned a ton. But as your most veteran presence, he needs to be able to man one of those spots. It needs to be pretty good. And I think you can hope Van Poppel on the interior as well. They've got options, I think, on the outside and some intriguing ones. But in terms of sorting that through, you're probably not going to get as dominant a play as you had from Hutmacher and Robinson in 2024, but also where's the depth going to come from? And I think that kind of becomes the key question for him in the spring is trying to get a handle on that and then being ready for the second portal window if you need to be.
Yep, that's it'll be a part of spring of the most to gain that we'll get into a discussion next week when you join us again. What do we have coming up on counterread.com?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to dig into some of the Eckler stuff specifically for tomorrow. I was quite interested in the punt return angle that Sam McEwen of the Mount World Herald brought up. So found it interesting that Eckler knew that number exactly. So that's what we'll be writing about tomorrow.
Much different from back in the fall when someone was asked a number and they gave it. Sorry,
wasn't so great.
Hey, have a great week as always. Appreciate your time, and you got screwed.
Yeah,
thanks, guys. Have a good one.
That is Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. Him and Aaron Sorensen, they do fine work. Great stuff. Become a subscriber of their Substack.
Absolutely. Mike the Miracle Worker Eckler. He got Velus Jones drafted.
Nice. Yes.
There you go.
Good. All right. I'm out tomorrow off to Sioux Falls. I hope not to be back here until Tuesday.
I hope you're not back here until Tuesday either.
And then you'll leave again.
You got a week. Hopefully, maybe.
We're hoping for that. That's as good. This means you're working your stuff.
So off to Sioux Falls for the conference tournament. I'll be on the show, but will not be in studio. Great show, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope we help you get through late night in Columbus. Where Seamus has said it's time to fly.
It's time to fly.
It's time for us to go. Crossover's coming up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 for Jimmy, for Matt. I'm Gary. It's Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone.